Well, hello everyone, and welcome to, I guess, another episode of the Head Couch Analysts. We haven't been around for over a month and a half, and a large part of that has been due to I don't think I need to say all this shit because everyone knows what we're talking about. It's because of COVID-19. But we finally figured out that we are going to be doing an audio recording for now instead of an in-person thing. Purdue and I will get back to the in-person thing, but until some guidelines start not being so restrictive, which apparently is supposed to happen by mid-May, at the end of the month, whatever. Some states are opening, some states aren't. We'll see what happens and how the trends go from that. So, but speaking of my co-host Pardue, I should introduce him. How you doing, bud?
As good as you can be right now, right? I'm still going into work every day, so nothing's really changed for me.
You know what? I guess you can somewhat appreciate that in some ways, but in other ways, maybe not so much.
Yeah, no, because I can't go do anything else on the weekend.
Yeah, so at least it gives you something to do during the week, right? Yeah, no,
Right, I suppose so.
I never thought I'd say I'd miss 10 to 11 hour days, but holy shit, I miss 10 to 11 hour days. Because when I'm done after like 3 hours of work, I'm like, what do I do?
Yeah, I feel that. I'm just beaten, man. I'm tired working every day. But in regard to COVID, we can get into that a little bit. Obviously, we haven't been posting or making content due to it, but I guess we could segue right into it. How it's affecting the league right now.
So before you get into that, I want to talk about today's show. Today's show, we are going to be covering what we consider the biggest takeaways from the offseason so far.
Right.
We are going to be, this is something you would normally do during June when it's the dead of summer, but we actually have like some really cool topics we want to cover during June, some cool, really fun episodes that aren't necessarily relevant right now and can be pushed down the road. So we're doing our biggest offseason takeaways now, and if anything else happens, we'll address those in later episodes. But for now, we're going to give you guys 10 things, and these are the biggest ones we feel in our opinions. If we miss something, let us know, and maybe we'll talk about it in the next episode. Anyways, so COVID-19, obviously the biggest thing happening in the world right now. What's it doing to the NFL, Pardue?
So today is May 4th, 2020, obviously. And just this morning, the news dropped that there will be no international NFL games this year. So no games in London. And I believe there was only supposed to be one game in Mexico City this upcoming year that are no longer happening. So all those teams are getting their home games back. And keep in mind, the Jaguars were supposed to play 2 games in London this upcoming season. So now they're getting their 2 home games back. So for Jags fans, if fans are allowed to go into NFL stadiums this upcoming season, we'll be happy that they're getting those back. But, to the Jags fans over in London, sorry, you're not getting your favorite NFL team this year. Now, when you look at the Cardinals, the reason they agreed to do an international game in Mexico City this year was the league stipulation to Arizona getting their next Super Bowl in the upcoming years. I believe they are scheduled to get it in 2024. I don't remember off the top of my head, but I know they are getting it in the next few years. And they had to play an international game either this year or next year to get it. So as of right now, it's up in the air because you can't do it this year now. And that's something I was thinking about a lot today is are these teams who are playing internationally to get Super Bowls, are they still going to have to do it now? Is that still going to be part of the stipulation in the deal with the National Football League to get their Super Bowls or not? That's still yet to be seen. But that's news that just dropped today in regard to the NFL and how COVID is affecting it. Anything you have to say on that, Sanders?
Not necessarily. The only thing I thought about was it gives me one more option for a Cardinals game because I plan on going to one this year. Mm-hmm. So I was like,
and yeah, that's another thing is we didn't even know who the opponent was going to be, and supposedly the NFL schedule was dropping this week, so we were supposed to find out.
Officially drops this Thursday. We didn't even know who the opponent was supposed to be. Officially drops this, which is actually earlier than it was supposed to. It wasn't supposed to drop till Saturday. The fact we're getting it Thursday is pretty nice. So I have a feeling, based upon how the NFL is acting, is even if I anticipate that a lot of like small things like restaurants and get-togethers are going to be really banging and super popular by the prime time of summer.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how things like concerts and games and things like that are going to go. I think that's the one thing that probably, no matter how you view it, I think that's the one most people are going to be worried about. So I think the NFL's plan is probably just play these games anyway. They have deals with these broadcast teams and whatnot, so they're probably going to play them without a crowd, I would imagine. And NASCAR has already set that precedent. That happens in like a week, doesn't it?
Yes, I believe the first race back is May 17th.
Yeah, so, and that's not too far away. So the NASCAR's already setting a precedent for crowdless events happening. So I wouldn't be totally surprised if the NFL is just saying, we're doing the full schedule because that's our plan and nothing's going to change. And frankly, having 26 men on a field by that time probably wouldn't restrict any guidelines set forth by then. So I totally imagine that the NFL is going to start on September, I think it's 2nd, is that Thursday or whatever, regardless of what else is going to be happening.
Now, when you look at how the NFL's in a really good situation because they weren't in the middle of the season or having their season just about to start like the other leagues. The NBA was a month away just about from starting the playoffs. They'd be in the middle of the playoffs right now. The MLB was in the middle of spring training. They only had about 2 weeks left of spring training, and then the regular season was beginning. And then NASCAR just barely started their season. They were like 3 or 4 weeks in. So all of these leagues were the NHL. They were getting ready to start their playoffs here soon. All these leagues were so far into their seasons or just now beginning their seasons now, they're having to either shorten them, cut them off, or end them altogether. Like, honestly, when I'm looking at the NBA and NHL season, there's so many steps that need to be taken, and the NBA is asking for thousands and thousands of thousands of tests, of COVID-19 tests, just so they can run their league, and there just isn't that many to go around. And they're talking about creating a bubble city in Disney World for them, and there's so many different options. And then the MLB is thinking about stationing in one state or just a couple different states. It's a really difficult thing to comprehend and to plan out, just given the way everything is changing almost every single day. But with the NFL, you're in the middle of your off season, so you have time to plan around that. Your training camps don't start until the end of July, so you have time. Now, it still does affect the overall off season. Now, for teams that have new head coaches this season, like for the Cowboys, for example, getting Mike McCarthy. Prior to the, go ahead.
I was gonna say you can't start playbook practice during the spring or whatever, right? And then you have this stupid cheating by Tom Brady because he went to go to Byron Leftwich's house to pick up the playbook. Now, now everyone and their mother probably knows maybe they talked some things about the playbook. Obviously, I'm sure Brady had questions about the playbook and how the offense is run. But that's only A, 1 day. B, it's an unprecedented time, so I can't really blame. You can't really sit there and say, well, Tom Brady can't do that. Well, in this unprecedented time, quite honestly, he needs the playbook, and he needs to get caught up with it. So what are you going to do, right?
And in regard to that as well, like, so teams that do have new head coaches this season, they get a 1 or 2 week mini camp prior to the draft to start implementing things. So last year, the Cardinals and Cliff Kingsbury already had practice with Josh Rosen before they drafted Kyler Murray just to implement their new offense and their new schemes and their new ideals into their team for new head coaches. That was taken away this year.
Yeah, Mike McCarthy doesn't get to do that with Dak Prescott.
Correct. And now going forward, there's no rookie mini camp.
Joe Judge doesn't get to do that with Daniel Jones or the Giants either. Yeah.
And there's no rookie mini camp. There's going to be, as of right now, there's no rookie mini camp. So the rookies aren't going to be able to get ahead of the curve.
You're talking about all this, and all I can think of is the NFC East is fucked because the only team who didn't change a coach is Doug Peterson.
Right. And as of right now, there's going to be no OTAs. So the very first time these rookies And these new coaches with these new teams are going to be hitting the field with their new rosters and new everything. The first time these guys are going to be hitting the field is training camp. And then you're on average, about 2 weeks away, depending on when teams start camp. You're 2 weeks away from your first preseason game.
And there's only 3 this year.
Right. Because with the schedule releasing this week, it's subject to change, and be prepared for it to change. They already have contingency plans, and I'm sure that's going to be a big part of the news with the schedule change, that there's going to be weeks that might get snipped,
yeah, i.e.
some of the preseason games,
instead.
some of the potentially bye weeks, potentially, the Pro Bowl might get snipped. So be prepared to have it be subject to change, but as of right now, however many preseason games, you're going to get 1 or 2 weeks before your first preseason game. What if you have multiple preseason games snipped off and you only have 1 or 2 preseason games? That's going to affect how these rookies develop. So what if you're a rookie, you get 1 or 2 preseason games, and then you're being thrown into the fire, i.e. a Joe Burrow, the number 1 overall pick. You're being thrown into the fire from what was the worst team in the league with about a month of NFL true preparation and practices into your first NFL start. That's not good. That's going to be tough for these rookies. I love this rookie class. This is probably the most talented rookie class we have ever seen, and they might not live up to their full potential this year just because the way COVID is affecting the offseason and how practices will be run.
I imagine.
Your thoughts?
I imagine I thought about this. I think for the first 4 weeks, I agree with you. 4 games. But I think by the time you get to game 5, game 6, that's usually when rookies start,
right?
Performing. Like, for example, there's exceptions. Like Marquise Brown popped off his first 2 games, and then everyone was like, "Oh yeah, well, the Ravens running game is going to run over everyone. We might as well stop Marquise Brown and make them one-dimensional, run the ball." Obviously, that was not a great strategy because they rattled off 14 wins. But regardless, Marquise Brown was slowed down, and he didn't start popping off, and he got injured, and he didn't really start doing well again after those first 2 games until about week 12, week 13, right? You take away the 3 games he was hurt, so then you put in another 3 games. Yeah, week 10, week 11, which is around the time he was getting together again. That's about the time when he started shedding his rookie shell, or rookie skin, whatever you want to call it, right? That's when he finally got used to probably watching the game tape, learning from his mistakes, improving himself and things like that. And next year is probably when you would see a better Marquise Brown. Another rookie I can think about from last year would be like Gardner Minshew and Kyler Murray, right? Like they both got off to hot starts, and then around week 3 through week 5, Minshew didn't perform that well and got benched. After
Kyler Murray trailed off a little bit.
Yeah, Murray trailed off a bit.
Long losing streak.
Yep, and then it wasn't until the last 4 weeks again that you were like, oh, hey, this Minshew kid ain't bad. And then you're like, oh shit, this Murray kid deserves Offensive Rookie of the Year.
Right.
So I anticipate it's still going to be kind of the same. They're probably going to be, instead of maybe having the potential pop off the first couple weeks, like Joe Burrow. Maybe the first 2 weeks could have had a pop-off game because there's no film on him, and then would have had a rough go of it. Maybe there is no rookie pop-offs this time around, and it's not till week 8 that we start seeing production from these rookies. That's kind of what I start seeing. And for teams needing to rely on rookies, that sucks. But for teams that are not going to rely on rookies, I think they'll be fine. There's a much broader topic about this that I want to hit on, and we'll do a full episode on it. But it's where I think that if your team was in the playoffs last year, they're probably going to end up in the playoffs again, just because those teams don't need the practice, right?
Especially with the expanded playoff as well, you have that much more of a chance of making it.
They already got a good thing going on. Like, for example, the Chiefs really don't. Nothing really happened to their roster. They don't really need to practice. They could probably practice 2 weeks before the NFL starts. Just say, hey, this is what we got rid of the playbook. This is what we're putting in. Memorize it. Start practicing 2 weeks before. In week 1, they're probably killing the Houston Texans. Right? Because I guarantee, I can guarantee you, by the way, that's our Thursday night game. It's going to be against the Texans because it's not going to be against the Patriots. That was the only other option. And the only good-looking matchup for the Chiefs at home in prime time is Mahomes versus Watson. So that's our week 1. That's our day 1 game, by the way. Promise you, betting on it. Go to Vegas, put your odds on it right now. I'm dead serious.
Put your stimulus check on it.
Yeah, pretty much. So there's a broader topic that I think like teams that dominated before and aren't going to rely on rookie classes. Then they don't necessarily need camp to improve. I honestly think, just like with every sport this year, there's going to be an asterisk next to this year in the sense that,
right.
You're going to think, well, of course the Chiefs did it. They were already a Super Bowl champion. Why wouldn't they do it again? And they didn't need their rookies, and they didn't need this, and they didn't need that, and la-da-da-da-da. And, of course, there'll be the people that'll say, well, you should have improved over 16 weeks, and, yeah, you can make that claim, but every team is 5 months behind compared to teams like the 49ers, the Chiefs, the Ravens, and the Packers, who pretty much have their same rosters. Now, 49ers are a little bit different, but they did use the draft to replace those things they lost. So, yeah, that's a whole other topic I don't want to talk on right now because I could talk for an hour about that. But that's my overall thoughts. Is I think from this COVID thing, I'm not so much like on like the rookies are going to be impacted because they are. Right, I think that's obvious. I'm more on the train of I think the veteran teams are the ones who are gonna pop off. Like it's really hard for me to envision a random team with youth just popping off this year. Because
especially youth at like really key positions.
Well, because you just don't have spring, you don't have May, you don't have rookie training camp during May. You don't have,
OTAs.
You have nothing till July to help out your youthful team. I just don't see a youthful team doing it this year. Now, I could just totally be surprised and I look like a dumbass and some stupid-ass youthful team comes out and surprises everyone. But for the most part, I'm sitting here like, I love the Broncos' potential, but yikes.
Yeah, I think they need time. And, like, I'm not
they
going
won't
to
get
get
that
too
time.
far into it.
They won't get that time is my point.
Right.
So that's my overall thoughts on this.
Right. Yeah, I would agree with that. I think that pretty much wraps up the whole COVID situation. If you want, we can get it out of the way now. One of our topics today is just the Arizona Cardinals. And I know that'll make our Arizona Cardinals fans and listeners really happy. We can get that out of the way real quick so we don't irritate the other listeners too much because I know you guys hate me talk about the Cardinals so much. So
don't worry, we're not talking. Don't worry, we're not talking about the Ravens today, so you don't have to worry about that.
Yeah.
But I actually wanted to talk about the Cardinals. I mean, obviously Pardue over here wanted to, but you guys can blame me, Sanders. I wanted to talk about the Cardinals because
they won the offseason.
This is well, not only that, but like this is a team that I am is going to be in one of my feature articles. It's coming out on Friday, so I wanted to put my thoughts out on here as well. I'm gonna let Pardue start though, because he's the biased fan over here, and then I'll level it out at the end.
Hey, I'll try and stay as level-headed as I can. But first thing I just wanted to say is, as someone who really did trash on Steve Keim for a good while, I'm so sorry. First, like, and when I look at these last two drafts for the Cardinals, last year you got Kyler Murray and Byron Murphy. They're what will be their slot defensive back this upcoming season. You got guys like Andy Isabella, Hakeem Butler. Now, those guys didn't contribute a whole lot this last year, but they're expected to this year. Now, when that draft happened, they got a really, really high grade for that draft. And now this last draft, you got guys like Isaiah Simmons. You used your second-round pick on DeAndre Hopkins. You used fifth-round picks on guys like Kenyon Drake, Jalen Thompson, who they got out of the supplemental draft. You got two really good defensive tackles in really good spots in Lecky Fotu and Rashard Lawrence. And let's not forget to mention the offensive tackle who's going to be playing right tackle for the Cardinals, Josh Jones. This was a guy who on the PFF board was ranked the 14th best player in the entire NFL draft. And correct me if I'm wrong.
Many teams had him as a first round. Many teams did.
Yes. There was teams where he was the number one, number two tackle on their boards, and he fell to the third round, I believe, at pick number 72 for the Cardinals. You got a first-round talent. Now, I don't – for all we know, he's going to be a bust. For all we know, Isaiah Simmons could be a bust. But when I look – I don't grade on how I –
because the draft is a lottery.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. I don't do draft grades based on how good I think the players that they drafted are because we don't know. We don't know how they're going to translate in the NFL. I grade on value at where they were taken and to what they could potentially project into the NFL. And Isaiah Simmons, he was the second best defensive player in this draft, and arguably top 3, top 2 players overall in the draft. And they got him at number 8. Josh Jones, right tackle. He was a guy who was ranked in the top 30, sometimes top 15 on a lot of teams' big boards, and they got him at 72. You can argue that's the steal of the draft right there. Now, I mean, we won't know until then, but my main point is the last 2 drafts on paper have been graded super, super high for the Arizona Cardinals. In previous years, when Bruce Arians was still the head coach of this team, we were getting mediocre draft grades when we were drafting guys like Hassan Reddick, Robert Kimdichie, Jonathan Cooper. Those are all first-round picks that were massive busts for
Don't
this
you
team.
have a track record of like 4 years in a row you don't have any of your first-round picks on your team anymore?
Correct. Now
holy fuck.
The entire 2016 draft is no longer on this roster. I believe after Hassan Reddick, the entire 2017 draft will be gone. And Hassan Reddick might be cut at the end of this offseason. Now, they
Poverty.
were 4 grades of percentage. So what I honestly think is maybe Bruce Arians had way more influence than Steve Keim when it came to drafting, because the grades and the way they've drafted is so drastically different, and the philosophy they seem to have when it comes to drafting is so drastically different. The Cardinals have taken way more risks since in terms of the draft since Bruce Arians has been gone.
Do you ever think that maybe Cliff
there.
Kingsbury has a hand in this too? Because obviously, Kyler Murray is not the number 1 pick if Cliff Kingsbury is not the head coach. So
There's
obviously,
people who were saying Kyler Murray might fall to the 2nd round if the Cardinals don't take him at the number 1 spot. Now, I don't think that's true. I think the Raiders would have ended up taking him, I believe, at the 4th spot. But that's where it was, because that was the match made in heaven. So on some heat, and it's been justified, and with the whole DUI and everything, you've heard me say he should have been fired a long time ago, and now for this offseason that he's had on paper,
which is probably true, like in retrospect.
Right,
like when you think about everything, he should have been. Like 2 drafts that sucked, the DUI thing, like all of that accumulates to get fired, right? And the Bidwells just decided not to for whatever reason.
Right.
Maybe they thought they couldn't get a better GM. Maybe they thought, well, 2012, 2011, 2013 were great. Who knows?
And like you could say those years were great too, but a lot of that roster back then too was still Rod Graves' roster. And then Steve Keim came in and kind of messed it all up. And yeah, he had those Steve Keim signs, but he wasn't drafting well. Anyway, main point is he's had an incredible offseason. And something I wanted to bring up earlier, let's start with the trade since we've already basically covered the draft, let's look at basically the number 1 story and number 1 accusation and or trade.
Oh yeah, the trade for Kenyon Drake. It was great. I love Kenyon Drake.
So I'm sure you guys are like, why hasn't he mentioned this yet? The trade for DeAndre Hopkins. Now,
Stole,
I look at this on
robbed,
multiple...
thievery, everything that you can think of to describe that. That's what it is. Bill O'Brien, you idiot.
Now, I look at this trade on multiple levels. The Cardinals were trying to shop David Johnson. They were trying to get off that cap hit and that money. So that morning when that trade went down, I believe how it happened is we tagged Kenyon Drake. And I was like, oh man, we just tagged Kenyon Drake and we still have David Johnson on the roster? That can't be right. I think David Johnson's about to get traded. 30, 45 minutes later, David Johnson's been traded to the Texans. And I was like, oh, shit. Well, I wonder how much of the cap hit they ate. And then Adam Schefter is tweeting, and I'm looking at it, and he's like, oh, Texans take all of DeAndre Hopkins' cap hit. And I was like, oh, my God. I wonder what the Cardinals got. They probably didn't get a lot, but I mean, wow, that's really awesome. We completely got off the cap hit, and we got the running back that fits this offense. And then you see, oh, my God. The Cardinals just traded for DeAndre Hopkins.
I didn't believe it when I first saw that on Twitter.
I didn't either.
I looked at the source, and I I looked at the person who posted it. I forget who it was. I think it was an Ian Rappaport look, or maybe it was an Adam Schefter look. But I specifically clicked on their profile to see if it was a parody, because I'm like, no fucking way. You know when you see something and you're like, no way, and you click to make sure it's a parody, and it wasn't a parody, I was like, oh my god, that's not real life. That's just not real life.
I imagine Bill O'Brien called up Steve Keim and was like, hey, yo, let me take David Johnson, I'll take all of his salary, and I'll give you DeAndre Hopkins. Steve Keim laughed it off and hung up. He's like, someone just fucking... He looks over at Michael Bidwell. Someone just prank called me, said they were going to give me DeAndre Hopkins for David Johnson. And then he calls back, hey, this is Bill. Was it just a bad connection? And Steve Keim's like, oh, shit, you're serious. Can I get a fourth-round pick? Can I get a fourth-round pick as well? Yeah,
and we'll give you our second-round pick?
Yeah, exactly. And it's just unbelievable that they pulled that off. And for them, the thing that blows my mind the most is that they took all of David Johnson's salary, and that gives you the chance to also get Kenyon Drake.
Half and half or whatever.
Right, and that was the biggest thing for me. And then when you're looking at this roster as a whole right now, when you look at the free agency acquisitions that made, they filled this roster had so many holes going into the offseason. And while maybe not all of them are fixed, they addressed every single one. Now, the right tackle, the Cardinals' offensive line is being labeled as terrible because of all the sacks. If you really watched, half of those sacks were Kyler Murray's fault because he either ran out of bounds behind the line of scrimmage.
Can I intersect here for a second?
Go ahead.
Okay, so I love to say a meme, and I've said it on the show, and I'm going to meme right now. Kyler Murray was a little bitch during his rookie season. That's why some of those sacks happened. Some of those he literally just fell on the ground. Now,
right, yeah,
Now, on a technicality, when you watch Peyton Manning and Tom Brady, the reason why you don't see Tom Brady do as much anymore is, and he has stated this, and I learned this actually on the Pat McAfee show, because he said it on the Pat McAfee show. Tom Brady has learned, and he actually was told by Peyton Manning to do this. Tom Brady has learned to, if you're going to take a sack, just tuck the ball and curl. And it's because that's the easiest way you can go down without hurting yourself. And when you're when you're at the older age you are, and you notice with Drew Brees too, he just takes the hit. He curls up, takes the hit. So I understand Kyler Murray, did it, but he did it in a really funny way where he just flopped on the floor. He wasn't even sacked. He just flopped on the floor. So that's the meme I like to say. But a lot of those sacks came from the fact that Kyler Murray was kind of like Lamar Jackson in his first year, or like a lot of rookie quarterbacks. He would
run for too long. He would hang on to the ball for too long without throwing it away.
Daniel Jones did the same thing this year, too. Dak Prescott did the same thing his rookie year. A lot of rookie QBs who are mobile, even Russell Wilson did this his rookie year. They tucked the ball, decided to run around in the scrimmage line, and create some magical plays. Like, one of my favorite Kyler Murray plays is when he scrambled around and did like a 40-yard bomb against the Falcons defense. It's a great pack play. But then there's other plays where he scrambles around, and then finally it's an 8-yard loss because he can't see anything down the field, and oh shit, I have no pocket and no protection, and there's this massive 300-pound guy running at me. I just gotta go down because I'm this really short 200-pound guy against this 300-pound guy, so...
And I think that's what Kyler was adjusting to, because he got better about it really late in the season. He finally started to get better about it. But, I mean, it wasn't until like the last couple of weeks where he finally started learning, okay, I need to know when a play is over and get rid of the ball. I feel like he's going to be a lot better about it next season, but I believe he was ignorant to the fact that, yes, he's very fast, but...
So are some of these edge rushers. Of these edge rushers.
Even the defensive tackles that are 300 plus, 325, 350 pounds, they're way faster than the ones you were going against in college. You can't run away from these guys. You're not running away from Aaron Donald if he has a good angle on you. And I believe he'll learn from that. Now,
or T.J. Watt, or J.J. Watt, or Joey Bosa, yeah.
So the Cardinals didn't massively address their offensive line. They re-signed Marcus Gilbert, who I assume will be their starting right tackle, over Josh Jones to start the season. Then you have Justin Murray, Marcus Gilbert tore his ACL in training camp last year, and he was going to be the starter. And when you look at it, he is probably the most talented offensive lineman we have on the roster. Now, I assume he will be the starting right tackle to begin the season. Josh Jones will eventually probably get worked into it. but they have massive depth for the first time this is the first time I've ever seen the Cardinals have so much depth on the offensive line.
Okay, so
now
here's what I'm going to tell you right now, because
Go
we
ahead.
are at now 11 minutes on the Cardinals. I'm going to give you.
I'm
going to give
right.
you.
I'm wrapping up.
I'm going to give you 35 seconds to wrap up, so I can say my 2 minutes on the Cardinals, and we can move on.
I gotcha. So they filled their holes. They added an edge rusher in Devon Kennard. They added another middle linebacker across from Jordan Hicks and Devondre Campbell. I would still like to see another veteran presence like a Tony Jefferson or something like that brought into the secondary, but they filled all
nice
of their
reunion, yeah.
holes. Right, I agree. And they addressed all of their major holes, and they immediately made themselves a contender in the NFC West. I don't project them to win the NFC West, but they set themselves up to be a potential worst of first team with the way they ran this offseason.
And it's saying a lot, saying as you have the Rams, Seahawks, and 49ers in your division, all with talented head coaches. So I want to take my little bit on the Cardinals. You addressed the fact that they improved all their roster spots, and I figured you would, so I'm not going to go on that. What I am going to tell you is I remember seeing a tweet, and I know it was from you, Purdue, because you liked it. And I didn't like the tweet. I didn't comment on it. I didn't quote tweet it because I wanted to save my thoughts on it and I wanted to think about it. Overall, I really disagree with the tweet. There was a guy who said you can't compare Kyler Murray to Patrick Mahomes and Lamar Jackson because Patrick Mahomes had an entire team built for him and he entered a playoff team, which he did. Alex Smith was in the AFC Championship a couple times. He entered a team that was already AFC Championship worthy. Patrick Mahomes put it over the top. Lamar Jackson entered a team, actually, that was not a playoff team. I mean, they were, but they weren't. The Ravens the last 2 years had heartbreakers in Week 17, fucking Antonio Brown in the stretch, and then the fucking...
They'd been a better run franchise, and they were still 9-7.
And then
still 6 more wins.
4th and 12,
but I see what you're saying.
The 4th and 12 Andy Dalton pass, Anyway, robbed. Lamar Jackson was going into a situation with a good head coach and a very well-oiled machine, right? And they committed the offense his rookie year. They turned a Joe Flacco offense to a Lamar Jackson offense like that. It wasn't even it wasn't even after a bye. They just did it, right?
Right.
Like they had plays set aside for him, and they're like, "Well, we got 12 plays set aside for you. Let's just run these same 12 plays with different looks and hope it works." And it did. They went 6-1. And then during the offseason, they fully committed. They drafted like they were going to be a running team. They signed free agents like they were going to be a running team. They said, we need a nasty defense, so we're going to sign Earl Thomas, which in retrospect, he performed well. Wasn't elite Earl Thomas, but he performed well. We're going to bring back our corners. We're going to make sure our defense is nasty. And when it wasn't nasty, what did they do? They cut their linebackers, signed Josh Bynes, grabbed Marcus Peters. They made sure to make sure their formula of nasty defense and Lamar Jackson head-spearing a running game was going to work, right? So they tailored the entire team to him. So that's the difference between Patrick Mahomes / Lamar Jackson and Kyler Murray. Is that's not technically happening for Kyler Murray right now, but here's what I want to say and why I don't like that tweet. I actually think Kyler Murray is my early candidate to win MVP next year. It could easily be Patrick Mahomes or Deshaun Watson or Lamar Jackson again. It could easily be any of those three. But the reason I think it'll be Kyler is because, well, A, Watson, Lamar, and Patrick Mahomes are already well documented. And two of those quarterbacks already have an MVP on their belt. And people don't like seeing quarterbacks get multiple MVPs unless your name's Peyton Manning.
Right.
And even with
Tom Brady.
Well, I mean, even Tom Brady, he's had multiple MVPs, but he's played 21 years and only has 4. He probably could have had 10 during those. But you get sick of greatness, right? So I imagine that if Kyler Murray becomes this new hotness, it's easy to say, oh yeah, him, MVP. Now the stats got to show for it. But one thing I do want to say that I think is going in favor of Kyler Murray is the entire playbook is dedicated to him. This is a playbook he's been playing with for 7 years. Now, obviously, there's some NFL wrinkles in it. And obviously, you have to iron out wrinkles. And in my opinion, that's what his rookie season was for. And if you watch the last 3 games where they blew out Seattle, I forget who it was they blew out the week before Seattle. And they lost the Browns. They blew out the Browns. They blew out Seattle. They lost to the Rams. But that's a whole NFC West. That's an NFC West thing. The Rams just typically.
And the Rams have always owned the Cardinals for a few years.
That's an NFC West thing. Regardless, if you watch the film, you see that Kyler Murray, if he continues that, should be near. I'm not going to say he will be elite, but I'll say near elite status and enough to put himself in the MVP conversation, and if he improves upon that, the MVP. And it helps that he has a playbook completely tailored to him. So just like Patrick Mahomes and Lamar, he's got a playbook tailored to him. The only thing I think holding him back is that defense has also got to be playoff worthy, right? We have no idea if it will be or if it won't be. On paper, it looks like it could be fine, but we have no idea if Vance Joseph is going to make it a playoff worthy defense or not. And winning games, we have seen, certainly goes into whether you get an honor. Now, for Kyler Murray's case, for Rookie of the Year, there wasn't many rookies who were on winning teams. Like Minshew wasn't. Sharpay was, but whatever about Sharpay. Josh Jacobs was not. And then Murray was. Thank you for that. Sorry, I just received something. Thank you for that. Sorry, I was on Josh Jacobs. Josh Jacobs was on a bad team as well, right? And so in the end, it was like, all right, let's pick a quarterback. We'll pick the quarterback that looked the best, which was Kyler Murray. And I totally believe he deserved it. I don't think it was just that. But if the Cardinals go 8-8, I don't see an MVP case. If he goes 10-6, I totally see it. And looking at the schedule, that's totally possible. So so my whole point of things I wanted to say on the Cardinals is I anticipate Kyler Murray to be MVP-like, maybe not MVP, MVP-like. And because of that, when a player is playing so well, typically, and they're a leader, typically the team can rally. Even if the team doesn't
elevate the team.
Even if the team doesn't deserve to be where they're at, they will elevate. I think a great example of this is the Chicago Bears when they got Khalil Mack. Another great example was Larry Fitzgerald during the Cardinals' 9-7 run. I mean, should the Cardinals really have been in the Super Bowl? That's debatable, but
no,
Larry Fitzgerald...
They were labeled the worst playoff team of all time. And then came the 2014 Cardinals where Ryan Lindley started a game.
Yeah, I know. But, hey, they went to the Super Bowl because Larry Fitzgerald was incredible. The whole team elevated around Larry Fitzgerald. Now, you had Kurt Warner, too, which is a whole other thing, but the big thing was Larry Fitzgerald. Another one would be Marshawn Lynch. That offense that was run by Russell Wilson was not very good. If you watch Russell Wilson back then, he kind of played like Dak Prescott plays right now. He was okay. He was 3,800 yards in a season. He won't throw many interceptions, but he's not going to throw many touchdowns. He was very okay, and Marshawn Lynch spearheaded the whole thing. Now, of course, there's Legion of Boom, but the offense rallied around Marshawn Lynch. Right? So I truly believe the Cardinals should have a source to rally around, and that's going to be Kyler Murray. So that's my tidbit on the Cardinals and why I firmly believe they're going to do it. Now, there's a lot of tangibles that I'm not getting into that I'm saving for my feature article that I've written, so you can check it out there when I post it. But my overall theme is this is the Kyler Murray hype train. I've been on this train since January, February. I really got into my eyes. Oh my God, yes, another great quarterback, Kyler Murray. Let's go. And I know you were always telling me, calm down. We don't know yet. And I know you're just being cautious because you've never seen the.
I just want to see him do it again.
Yeah.
I love Kyler. I'm probably getting his jersey for my birthday, but I just want to see him do it one more time.
Yeah,
so I know for sure.
I totally get it, and I honestly feel that way about Lamar Jackson too. I kind of want to see him keep up this consistency. So speaking of keeping up consistency, let's segue that into Tom Brady, who's the definition of consistency, and the Buccaneers.
Probably the number 2 story of this offseason.
Yeah. So. If you've been living in a cave,
wait. First thing I want to say. A couple months back, I told you Tom Brady was not going to be on the Patriots on this podcast, and you said no way.
I said it'd be stupid.
And what happened, Sanders? Feel free to tell me.
Well, he was signed, and on that day, I texted you. I said that's still stupid. Yeah, but you know what they also did. They also signed Rob Gronkowski. They also drafted linemen. They also basically said, yo, we're giving Tom Brady a team.
We're giving him the Patriots,
and
basically. You
know what's funny is actually reports have come out that he had a say in players for the draft. That he was.
Oh, I'm sure.
That he was. And what's funny is So I'm always going to talk about Pat McAfee now because like that's my favorite show. It used to be Rich Eisen, and I still listen to Rich Eisen. Pat McAfee became my favorite, mostly because he has a lot of insight that no analyst has because he was a player, and he is a player that's willing to be brutally honest. He's not like Shannon Sharp or all these other guys who will hide secrets. Pat McAfee's like, no, I'm just going to tell you how it is. This is how it is. This is for better or worse.
Mm-hmm.
He said when he was on a team with Peyton Manning, he said Peyton Manning was the GM, the head coach, the quarterback. And what he meant by that was, if Peyton Manning told Jim Irsay, the owner of the Colts, hey, I don't like Tony Dungy, you need to get rid of him, he would have been fired later that year.
It would have been done.
Yep. If he would have said, hey, I don't like our general manager, he would have been fired. If he would have said, hey, I don't like Reggie Wayne, he's not a good receiver, he would have been cut. He said Peyton Manning just had that power because Peyton Manning did it all, and he was the leader, right?
Right.
And Tom Brady, I'm sure, has that same thing. And Bruce Arians is a very like stubborn guy, but I don't think he's like ignorant to the fact that he has a GOAT on his team. Mm-hmm. And if Tom Brady wants something, and if Bruce Arians wants to win a Super Bowl, that's the best way to do it, right? Let Tom Brady have what he wants and what he needs.
Right.
And this is going to go into what my main take is on the Buccaneers. I'm not labeling them Super Bowl contender. I'm labeling them playoff contender, which is actually a very different take from the day that I reacted to it. My initial reaction was stupid. He should have gone to the Titans. There's no way they'll do anything with the Bucs. Because I had Saints in my head. And the Saints are still a very imposable force. I'll tell you that. I'll say that much.
And you never know with the Falcons either, because they're always up there too.
Yep.
It's either they're going to be good or they're going to be bad. They always have like the same roster. They've always had a good roster. It's just can they put it together? Exactly.
So my initial take was they're not going to do shit. They're going to get like 9 wins. But the more I think about it, I'm like, there's Godwin, there's Evans, and this offense really reminds me of the 2007 Patriots offense where Tom Brady had everything at his disposal. And I'm not saying Mike Evans or Chris Godwin's Randy Moss, but if you combine their production, it's pretty close to Randy Moss. And like I said, I'm not calling them Randy Moss.
Right.
I'm just saying it's elite talent. You got Rob Gronkowski, which I don't think Rob Gronkowski's going to be like that big. I think he's going to have like a Jason Witten return, like 600 yards, and he'll be a red zone threat. Like, if Rob Gronkowski only gets 600 yards and 8 touchdowns, that was worth the 4th round pick.
No doubt. That's easily worth a 4th round pick. And just to have the chemistry between him and Gronk, that's worth a 4th round pick.
O.J. Howard is still on the team. You just drafted.
I don't expect O.J. Howard to stay on the team. Bruce Arians doesn't like him.
You just drafted Tristan Wirfs, who is considered the best tackle in the draft.
And while I agree with that, yes, Bruce Arians doesn't exactly have the best track record of drafting offensive linemen, so we'll see on Wirfs. So I'm skeptical about that pick.
So here's what I'm going to say in general. And this is actually going to say, I think this would segue into my take on Denver and Jordan Love / Jalen Hurts, but we can get there later.
Mm-hmm.
The Bucs committed to Tom Brady. It wasn't just we're signing Tom Brady. It wasn't just let's sign this amazing player. It's let's sign this amazing player and commit our entire
and then build this team around him.
Yeah. So I like that, and it's changed my mind about the mentality of the things. And there's one thing that I know concerns some people. I don't know if it still concerns you. I know it was a concern for you at first, and it doesn't concern me anymore. If this is not going to be the Steelers offense that Bruce Arians rode. This is not going to be the Colts offense that Bruce Arians had. And this isn't going to be the Cardinals offense that Bruce Arians had. This isn't going to be Andrew Luck, Ben Roethlisberger, or Carson Palmer throwing it down.
Because Tom Brady isn't the ideal Bruce Arians quarterback.
No,
Tom Brady's
he's not.
Never been the huge gunslinger, throw it 60 yards downfield kind of quarterback.
So here's what I'm going to say, right? I think this offense will most resemble what Andrew Luck kind of had, because Andrew Luck could throw it deep, but he didn't do it that often. And under Bruce Arians, it actually wasn't the case where he bombed it a lot. Yeah, T.Y. Hilton was there, but they didn't bomb it a lot. Andrew Luck actually dissected defenses very well, and that's something Tom Brady does very well. I highly anticipate Bruce Arians to have a type of offense where he might send Chris Godwin deep because he likes sending guys deep, But that still leaves Mike Evans, Rob Gronkowski, and I'm just going to assume O.J. Howard for now. Just for now, still in the middle of the field where Brady can dissect. Now, Brady can still throw a 30-yard pass. I don't anticipate him to throw a 50 or 60-yard pass, right? But Brady can still throw a 30-yard pass if Godwin gets past someone and the safety's in the wrong spot. Or the safety decides to blitz and Godwin's home free. So I anticipate this to be an offense that has a mixture of explosiveness, but also caters to Tom Brady's, as I like to call it, death by paper cut style. Because Tom Brady is a guy that loves to only throw for like 8 yards, and this isn't a knack on him. It's just what he specializes in. He finds that open hole in your defense that's only about 6 to 8 yards, gives it to your big body or shifty guy, i.e. Rob Gronkowski, Julian Edelman, Wes Welker, etc., weapons in the past, and lets the receivers do the rest of the work because he knows he found that hole where the receiver can get more yardage after the catch. I anticipate this to be a mixture of both. My one concern why this team isn't a Super Bowl contender to me is, what are they going to do for the running game, A? I know they drafted someone, but what are they going to do for the running game, A? Because it can't be all Tom Brady and Chris Godwin and Mike Evans and all that. And B...
And their defense.
Oh, yeah, their defense. What's going to happen with the defense?
They have good pieces on their defense, but they got to put it all together. That secondary's rough. The defensive line is good, but you just got to be able to put it all together. I believe Bruce Arians is a really good coach, and I'm pretty sure Todd Bowles is still the DC there. So I think another year under Todd Bowles will be good for that defense, and they'll turn it around, and it'll be a well-performing defense. Like you were saying, I view them as a playoff team. I'm not quite sure I'm ready to put them in as Super Bowl contender yet.
I'm going to tell you right now, their schedule's not necessarily easy either. Like, for example, they have home games against the Packers, the Chiefs, the Vikings, and the Saints. That's not fun.
Yeah, you have to play the Saints twice as well.
And then you have 2 division games in the Falcons and the Panthers. And while I'm totally discrediting the Panthers in the South, rest in peace, Teddy Bridgewater.
Still a divisional game.
It's a divisional game. Like, that's what people don't understand about, like, when a good team plays a bad team, is if it's a divisional game, it's just a totally different game, right? Rivals are rivals. So, and then the only 2 games that I'm like, oh yeah, they should win that is the Chargers and the Rams. Those are the only 2 home games where I give that to them. The other 6 are pretty rough home games. And then their away games, they got to play the Bears, well, The Lions, Denver, ooh, that might be tough. The Raiders, The Saints, that will be tough because it's division. Falcons, it'll be tough. Panthers, it'll be tough. The Giants, So their road schedule looks easier, but the problem is that's the road. So they have a tough home schedule, and while their road schedule is easier, it's still not home.
Right.
So that's why I look at this, and I'm like, okay, realistically, if you take away home and you take away, oh, dude, we're going to get Brady versus Rodgers. Fuck, yeah, I just realized that. Anyway, sorry. I got them at 10 wins, 9 wins. I got them as playoff contenders. I don't have them as Super Bowl favorites, and I don't even.
And like we said earlier, or like I said earlier, with the expansion of the playoffs, 9 wins is probably enough to get you in as a wild card. So, but I definitely see them as a playoff team. I just can't imagine a team with Tom Brady, Gronk, Mike Evans, and Chris Godwin, and Bruce Arians as your coach not making the playoffs. Because didn't the Bucks still go 7-9 last year?
They went 7-9, yeah. So you know
7-9 with a quarterback that threw 30 interceptions.
You know what I will say would be perfect poetry by the football gods, though? And this is the last thing I'm going to say on the Buccaneers, and if you have anything else you can say, other than that, I'm ready to move on from the Buccaneers for now. I just have questions about their defense, and I really want to see some production from the Buccaneers defense, because, like, honestly, outside of I don't even think he's outside of like Ndamukong Suh and Shaq Barrett. I just kind of sit here and I'm like, who's on the team? Who's on like who's a big person on the defense? And can Todd Bowles put this back together? I really don't know. Last thing I'm gonna say though, it would be perfect poetry by the football gods if the Buccaneers won the Super Bowl this year. Not because Tom Brady's on the team, and he finally did it without Bill Belichick, and we can put that to rest.
Mm-hmm.
But because the Super Bowl's in Tampa Bay, and Tom Brady would be the first ever quarterback to win a Super Bowl for his home team. So
I didn't even think about that.
Yeah, that's what would be poetic, is if Tom Brady. I mean, in my opinion, he's already cemented his GOAT status. But in my opinion, if a hater ever said Tom Brady isn't the best, I'd be like, he won a Super Bowl without Bill Belichick and was the first quarterback to ever win it at home. I don't want to hear it anymore. Like, I'm already done hearing it, but I would really officially look at them and be like, dude, you're just a hater. Like, that's it. You just hate that Tom Brady won all those games. And I'm sorry. You couldn't appreciate it. So yeah, that's all. That's the last thing I got on the Bucks, is that it would be perfect.
Yeah, that's pretty much what I got too.
Okay, cool. We'll probably have more on the Bucks as things go by and whatnot. But I just have a lot of questions outside of Shaq Barrett and Ndamukong Suh, who aren't necessarily amazing players. Yeah, Shaq Barrett led the league, but how much of that was circumstance and accident
and contract year?
Yeah, because he wasn't that great before, and he didn't really accrue any interest. So
right.
Alrighty, next one. I know this is one you want to cover. It's actually one that I'm very interested in. It's actually going to segue into my take on Denver. So I'll let you take over Jordan Love and Jalen Hurts on what's going to go on here. I have some thoughts on it too, but what do you got for us on Jordan Love and Jalen Hurts?
So when both of these picks came down,
One was more shocking than the other, I should say.
Ooh. Honestly,
the trade up into the first round for an NFC Championship team.
Yeah,
that is 100%.
That's got to be
the shocker. Yeah. It's 100% Jordan Love.
I agree with you there. When that pick went down, I was like, oh wow, they're really gonna Brett Favre, Aaron Rodgers. They're doing what they did to Brett Favre.
You want to know what
Aaron Rodgers?
You want to know what I don't like about that comparison, though?
What?
So let's go to Favre Rodgers. And these were my thoughts on this. Let's go to Favre Rodgers. Brett Favre had already told the team, I'm contemplating retirement. Essentially what Ben Roethlisberger has been doing for the Steelers. That's why the Steelers drafted Mason Rudolph. So when Ben got bitchy about it, I was like, dude, it's a third-round quarterback. Why are you bitching? You're still clearly the starter. Whatever. Right? So when they drafted him, they drafted Aaron Rodgers, who many thought was the best quarterback, but Alex Smith was taken and then Aaron Rodgers was taken. I don't remember a quarterback being taken in between Alex Smith and Rodgers. I don't think there was. And the Packers got him because they were like, oh shit, that's the best quarterback in the draft. And Favre has told us he wants to retire in a couple of years. We might as well take this guy in the first round, and hopefully he's ready by the third or fourth year when Favre wants to retire. No harm, no foul. Now, Favre, love the guy. My favorite player, and my personal favorite player in NFL history is Brett Favre. But his flaw was how he handled the situation. And saying, I'm going to retire. Now I don't want to retire. And they were like, well, we already did spring camp with Rodgers, and we already have him set, and we like him, so we don't know what you want. So we're just gonna trade. We're just gonna, you can go to the Jets, right? So, bye. And so it was a sticky situation at the end, and part of it was because Favre retired and then said he didn't want to retire. That's kind of the issue. What I don't like about the comparison is that things were set up for them to take Rodgers. This year, 2 years ago, sorry, not 2 months ago, right? Well, I guess 3 months now because it's May. 3 months ago, 3.5. No, let's go to 3.5 months ago. Then I'll go to 3 months ago. 3.5 months ago, you were 1 game away from the NFC Championship. Now you got blown out, but you were 1 game away from the Super Bowl. And you kind of got to sit there and say, you know what? We need to adjust some things. We know what we want to do. And Matt LaFleur has already said, I want a stronger running game. So in reflection, they took a bruiser running back because they didn't have a bruiser running back. The fact they took a bruiser running back doesn't surprise me now anymore, now that I thought about it, because Matt LaFleur says he wants to be a running team. All right, cool, whatever. What shocks me is that 3 months ago, your quarterback says, I want to be a Packer for life. I'm going to end my career here. I got 4 years left on my deal, and I think...
And that he literally said, I would be really happy if we take a skill position player in the first round, because we haven't done that in 15 years.
To me, it's not that he said that on Pat McAfee's show. To me, it's that a quarterback said, I am guaranteeing myself to you. I am giving you my next 4 years. Brett Favre said, I might retire. Rodgers said,
Right.
you've got me till I'm 40. Guaranteed.
Mm-hmm.
And what do? They trade up. It's not even that let alone they picked it. They traded up for Jordan Love. And then
to draft your replacement, because he's not just a backup. You don't draft a backup in the first round. You don't trade up to draft a backup in the first round.
And when you look at Aaron Rodgers' contract, his money is front loaded the first 2 years. So you're starting to say, oh shit, well if Rodgers, descends or whatever in his third year, you can cut bait, start Jordan Love, which is kind of like what they did with Brett Favre, but it's different because, in my opinion, Rodgers, as petty as he is and as not that nice of a guy as he is, still deserves the respect as an athlete, because in the end, this is a business, right? You have to look at it from the business side and say, this is a guy who's committing to us, and he's still really good. And we reward him with his backup, his eventual successor. Like, I don't understand, what the thought process here, other than, you're thinking towards the future when you were one game away from the Super Bowl. It just doesn't make a lot of sense to me. If you want to be a running team, sure, you know what? I get that. You know what would make sense for you to be a running team? Drafting a tight end in the second round makes sense. Drafting your bruising running back in the third round makes sense. You know what would have made sense trading up? Patrick Queen. That would have made sense. You have the Smith brothers already, Preston Smith and Zadarius Smith. You add another guy who can rush the quarterback? Fuck. There you go, man. In the middle of the defense. Great. Now you have your run identity. You got the Smith brothers in your pass rush. You got Patrick Queen in the middle of the field. And now you got this three-headed monster at running back. Plus Aaron Rodgers is still your quarterback and you still got Devontae Adams.
Right.
I would have totally understood it if they didn't draft a wide receiver, if they had drafted someone like Patrick Queen. But instead they drafted a quarterback, and I don't get it. And then this is no hate to Jordan Love whatsoever, right? But I just don't get it. I don't understand it. None of it makes sense. And I won't defend it. Usually I like to be a contrarian and defend stuff. I can't defend this.
I would agree. I don't think now was the time to take his successor. I feel like now was the time to take a receiver across from Devontae Adams so he could have another option and open it up even more for Devontae Adams and help Aaron Rodgers. Like you said, they were one game away from a Super Bowl. They were a 13-3 football team. It didn't make sense, and honestly, it's a huge slap in the face to Aaron Rodgers.
Agreed.
And now I'm going to say this, and it might be an unpopular opinion, but as a person, I'm not a huge fan of Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah, like I said, he's kind of
a bitch.
He's kind of petty. He's kind of a dick to some people. Maybe not to his teammates.
He doesn't even associate with his family, dude. He has almost zero contact with anybody in his family. That's how petty he is. I'm not big on a guy like that.
We don't actually know if his family is a bunch of dicks or not, to be fair to him.
And that's fair, but I mean, every
it's not a good
family
look.
has dicks, dude.
Yeah, but it's not a good look. I agree.
Right. And so it's not a good look there, and just the way he's kind of carrying himself and the way he talks. I actually don't think they're dating anymore.
Oh, so she's
I don't
kind of
remember.
a bitch,
I don't
in my
remember.
opinion.
Either way, but just kind of the way he carries himself, the way he talks to the media, he's kind of pompous. So you really think after he just a couple weeks before he said, well, we haven't taken a skill position player in the first round in 15 years, so I'd really like to see that happen. You think just a couple weeks after he said that, you trade up to draft his replacement. Number one, you think he's going to be happy about that? And number two, you think he's going to want to help and develop this kid? He's not.
Probably not.
He's not going to want to.
It's going to be like what Ben Roethlisberger said. He's going to say, I'm here to win a football game, not tutor someone.
Exactly. And I don't blame Aaron Rodgers for that. I wouldn't say Aaron Rodgers is in his prime anymore, but he's still top 5 quarterback.
It's kind of like when Peyton Manning was in the twilight of his career. Still pretty damn good. I mean, Peyton Manning also set the touchdown record, which is, mind-blowing that he did that at his age. But we've seen a trend of quarterbacks that, in their twilight, if they look good, feel good, which Drew Brees has, Tom Brady has, Brett Favre did. It's possible. to still be playing at a high level, even if you're not in your prime.
Mm-hmm. Now, I think we're kind of on the same page with this one, that we don't agree with the pick and that Aaron Rodgers isn't going to be happy with the pick. And overall, I think we can agree that the Packers drafted fairly poorly. I get they want to identify as a running team, but I don't think they drafted in a way that maximizes their roster right now. They drafted in a way to build for the future.
I don't actually think they drafted poorly. When I found out that Matt LaFleur wanted to be a running team, and that's when I realized, he does not view Aaron Rodgers as the end-all, be-all. As soon as I realized that, I'm like, this draft makes sense. If you're someone who says Aaron Rodgers is the end-all, be-all, the Aaron Rodgers or bust kind of way, this draft doesn't make any sense. But if you view it the way Matt LaFleur is probably viewing it, it makes a ton of sense. This team is definitely built to do what Matt LaFleur wants to do. But like I said, if you want to do that, if you looked at the 49ers and said, wow, they fucking killed us because of the running game, I want to do that. I don't always want to have to rely on Rodgers. You know what? I'm totally down for that. It's something new for the Packers. But like I said, with that first-round pick and you're trading up, with that number 25 pick, I think Patrick Queen is the best choice there. And I'm not saying that because the Ravens picked him. I wanted Patrick McQueen from pick number 5. I told you, hey, Patrick McQueen is the guy I want, right? So I don't mean to say McQueen, I mean Queen. Patrick McQueen was the guy I wanted, and part of you knew this. And I was super excited when we got him. I can't believe he fell to us. When the Packers traded up, I was like, fuck, they're taking Patrick Queen.
Yeah, I remember you texted me, yeah. And
I totally thought the Packers were taking Patrick Queen because it would have made a lot of sense to say that's our defensive identity. We need more defensive juice because, frankly, they're a finesse defense. They're not a tough defense. And Patrick McQueen, I keep saying McQueen, god damn it. Patrick, yeah, this is Lightning McQueen over here. No, Patrick Queen would have added some juice, right? And like I said, with the tight end and the bulldozing running back, it makes so much sense for what Matt LaFleur's vision is for the offense of not relying on Aaron Rodgers, but if you need to, you can. It's where you draft his backup / successor that I'm like, yeah, I hate this draft. Even if the rest of the draft is, I think, okay, I think you wasted your first round pick completely. Right. Your second first round pick, I should say. Or was it? No, was it their second? No. This was their only one because they traded up from number 30. Yep, it was a waste. And no one was going to draft him. That's the funniest part. No one was going to draft him. They didn't have to trade up. He was, oh my god. Who was going to draft him? Quite honestly.
So now that I think we're both on the same page with that, we can move on to Jalen Hurts. And now this is the one that it frustrated me, this pick. Number one, I'm not a huge fan of Jalen Hurts in the first place. Number two, everybody's like, oh, it makes total, like a lot of people are just like, oh, this makes total sense just in case Carson Wentz gets hurt again and injury prone this and injury prone that. Guys, Carson Wentz is not injury prone. And I'm sure there's people listening to this right now like, yeah, he is. He all the time. He has missed 8 games in his entire career. He has started 56 games and has missed 8 in his entire career.
Yeah, 8 out of
60. Keep in mind, he tore his ACL one of these injuries.
I think the big thing that lets people think it's injury prone, because I thought about it when you told me this, is he's just been absent for the big games. Now,
exactly.
Now here's something I'd like to say though. The Eagles, as an organization, and the rest of the NFL kind of realized this once Nick Foles won a Super Bowl. I think the Eagles realize you need a backup quarterback to continue your success for you if your starting quarterback goes down. The way I view this pick is they said, Jalen Hurts is our guy to continue our success if Carson Wentz goes down. Not that he's taking over Carson Wentz.
Right.
That if, for some unfathomable reason, because the football gods decide to smite Carson Wentz, you're in a divisional playoff game and he gets hurt, you have a dynamic quarterback in Jalen Hurts. Now, I'm not guaranteeing he's going to light everyone up, but you have a dynamic enough quarterback with a lot of ability to work with your team. And I think that's where this vision is going, right?
And I agree with that. And I think that's, you're right, because that's not the part that frustrates me. I think it's more of the fans who want to just tag Carson Wentz as the injury prone.
Dude, everybody and their mother hates Carson Wentz because Nick Foles won a Super Bowl, and no one thinks about the fact that they had home field advantage because of Carson Wentz. People can suck it. Carson Wentz is amazing.
I know. I really like Carson Wentz, and like I had this guy tell me to get off Carson Wentz's jock because I told him because he, in my eyes, he's a top,
top five. He's my number 5
quarterback.
He's number 5 on my list.
And he's like, oh, there's no way he's top 5. Phillip Rivers is better. And
Dak Prescott is better.
Did you watch Phillip Rivers last year?
Did you watch Carson
Wentz?
Wentz?
20 yards field down there anymore.
Did you watch Carson Wentz carry his fucking team?
Yeah, Carson Wentz literally carried his team. He's like, oh, the Eagles had a good roster. I was like, yeah, a good fucking injured reserve roster.
Yeah. Alshon Jeffrey was there. Oh my God. Yeah. The running backs were gone.
Yeah,
Jesus.
and so, anybody who bashes on Carson Wentz, I immediately kind of discount them. Yes, he's been injured in big games. But
there is
giving him the injury-prone lion is ridiculous.
There is one guy, and I give him a lot of shit for it. It's 360 Fantasy Football. His name's Dan. He's not a Carson Wentz fan, and I actually got into his DMs one time. I'm like, yo, bro, what's with all the Carson Wentz hate? He's like, I actually don't hate Carson Wentz. He's like, part of it's just because he and Bootleg Fantasy, another guy, they share a fantasy website that they do together, and Bootleg Fantasy is an Eagles fan. So he's like, half of it's I just do it to get a rise out of Bootleg, my coworker, right? So I'm like, all right, that makes sense. He's like, the other half is I actually believe Carson Wentz is overrated. He's like, I don't think he's top 5 like everyone believes. He's like, I think he's top 10, but I don't like all this top 5 talk. And I'm like, you know what? That's kind of fair. Right?
And you know what? Yeah, I will give him that.
I will. I think that's fair, right?
Mm-hmm.
And maybe the Carson Wentz discussion gets annoying because there's people like you and me who will defend him. But I also think it's, I think the Carson Wentz thing is almost like the Dak Prescott thing. You either love him or you hate him, right? There's people who really love what Dak Prescott is doing, and there's people who don't like what Dak Prescott is doing. But then there's people who really love what Carson Wentz is doing, and then there's people like who basically, I don't know, Dallas fans. There's other people besides Dallas fans, but Dallas fans who are like, yeah, Carson Wentz isn't that great. And Dallas fans also feel that way because Dak Prescott, I think, is like 6-2 in their matchups or whatever. So they've never seen Carson Wentz beat their team anyway. So they don't think that.
Right.
As for the actual Jalen Hurts pick, I like the pick. I think it immediately improves your quarterback room because Josh McCown retired again, and he wasn't coming back. So you needed a quarterback. It's a little high of a price because it's second round, but I also believe because Marty Morhenweg, who used to be with the Ravens, is now an offensive assistant for the Eagles. I think he got into their ears and said, hey, yo, we did this with Lamar Jackson when Joe Flacco was our quarterback. I think we could do something similar when Carson Wentz. So you could have a Hurts package, and, because he has the ability to throw, right, it's very easy for you to, give
Use
Hurts.
him as a Taysom Hill. He's a good runner.
Yeah, I mean, the Taysom Hill comparison is good too, right? But I think at this point, I just consider Taysom Hill a glorified be-all tight end. He's a Swiss Army tight end, in my opinion.
Yeah.
I don't think he's a Swiss Army quarterback. In my opinion, he's a Swiss Army tight end. I don't buy this.
Agree.
I don't buy this whole he's the next Steve Young. I don't buy it whatsoever.
Oh, there's no way in hell. If anybody Dude's completed 4 of 10 passes in his career.
Hey,
shit like that.
Jameis Winston has completed more passes to the Saints than Taysom Hill. Yeah. So, I like the pickup because I think it brings some diversity. Obviously, it's not second round impactful, if that makes sense. But I like the pick. I think it's solid. It, like I said, improves your quarterback room. You have a worthy backup. Supposedly, you have a worthy backup. And it lets you throw wrinkles into your offense that other teams may not foresee. So I like the pick.
I can agree with that.
Much more than I can say about the Jordan Love pick. Because Jordan Love's never getting on the fucking field.
Mm-hmm. It'll be 2 or 3 years before he's actually starting.
Okay, so
Probably 2.
Let's segue this quarterback conversation to Denver. Because my comment on Denver is more about Drew Lock than anything else. If there was a player who benefited from the draft the most, it was 100% Drew Lock. It's so funny to me that when you talk about the Packers, they basically said, you know what, we're going to do it in Matt LaFleur's vision. We're going to do this running game, which is totally fine. I'm not hating on that. I hate the fact they traded Jordan Love, though. Doesn't do you any good. It doesn't. basically, if you only had one pick and your pick is Jordan Love, does that make your team any better against the 49ers?
Definitely not.
No, it doesn't. That's why it's stupid. The Jalen Hurts pick might make you better because you can throw in a couple trick plays. It adds to your playbook. Jordan Love doesn't add to your playbook. For Drew Lock, I love that Elway finally said, fuck, we might have a quarterback now. I don't have to worry about it. So now what are we going to do? Well,
I'm going to just cut you off real quick. Are you on this Drew Lock hype train?
What do you define as hype train? Because I'm not like 100% sure that he's the answer, but I'm optimistic.
The almost entirety of Twitter who just thinks Drew Lock is going to be some special, really great, immediate quarterback.
So here's what I'm going to tell you. I went back and I watched the Drew Lock tape, and he has some really good tape. He's got some really, really good tape. I really liked him last year in the middle of it, but I like it even more during this offseason. I don't think he's like the end-all, be-all. Like, I'm not sitting here saying he's going to be MVP. I'm not even going to say he's going to be in the discussion of MVP. But when you watch him, he doesn't make a lot of mistakes. And he protects the football. I think as a young quarterback, that's all you can really ask for from your quarterback at first.
How many games did he start for?
7.
7 games.
Yep, he was 5-2.
I need to see something stretched across a full season.
So,
and now that teams have tape on him,
so here's what I'm saying. Right?
I liked what I saw from him, but I'm not ready to crown him a good quarterback like a lot of other, like what I've seen a lot of other people do.
So here's what I'm going to say about Drew Lock. Okay, he didn't do a ton. He only threw 7 touchdowns, and he threw 3 interceptions. Like I said, he protects the ball. But he can also run the ball. He had 82 rushing yards. So he's a little mobile. He's not a statue, which was a far cry from Joe Flacco. I'm honestly going to tell you that I think I'm going to say I think this is Denver's quarterback for at least the next couple of years. Drew Lock showed a lot in that tape to like, and I think Elway finally, because Elway wasn't willing to give Brock Osweiler his contract, right? Despite the fact that Osweiler was winning, there were some sketchy things to not like about Osweiler. And that's why Osweiler didn't get his big contract with the Broncos. Mm-hmm. I think it's very telling that Elway finally is like, I think we have our quarterback. Because he's never actually said we have our quarterback. He never really said it for Paxton Lynch. He didn't say it for Brock Osweiler. All these quarterbacks he's drafted, he never said this is the guy, even though I drafted him. Because some general managers refuse to admit their mistakes. We can look at the Bears general manager for that one with Mitchell Trubisky. They don't like to admit their mistakes.
I think they just admitted their mistake by not giving him his 5th-year option.
True, but we'll get there in a second because I have a whole segment on the Bears.
All right, go ahead.
I think it's telling that Elway, who has willingly admitted his quarterback mistakes, and he's made a lot of them, finally said, I have my quarterback. It's not Tebow. It's not Osweiler. It's not Paxton Lynch.
It's not some guy I'm drafting late in the draft or signing off the street.
It's Drew Lock. Okay, and my bad. He's not 5-2 as a starter. He is 4-1 in 5 games. I just looked it up to make sure. That's my bad. His tape is good. That's what I'm going to tell you. His tape is good. Go back and watch his tape. It's good. I like that Elway finally said, you know what? I think I have my quarterback. So what did he do? The exact opposite of what the Packers did. He formed an entire offense around him and basically said, if a quarterback's going to do well, he needs to have talent. You need to help your young quarterback. You can't just.
And now he's got Cortland Sutton and Jerry Jeudy. Oh my!
And Noah Fant was pretty good last year too. Like whether Noah Fant was being thrown to by Flacco or Locke, Fant was like the number 1 target outside of Cortland Sutton. So, like, I think the big, like, learning lesson here is I'm pretty damn sure Elway said, look, our defense is still pretty good. You know, our defensive-minded coach in Vic Fangio can take care of that. I need to make sure Drew Lock succeeds, especially when I'm just watching our division winner basically say, yeah, keep another receiver, another running back for Patrick Mahomes. Give him all the weapons, right? I think when you see that, you're like, shit, we might need to do the same thing. If we want and you saw it with Watson, you saw it with Lamar, you see it with these young quarterbacks, you saw it with Kyler Murray. You put an offense and youthful talent around a quarterback, they're going to individually succeed. And here's the thing, even if the Broncos go 8-8, if Drew Lock has a good season, that was a success.
It's a success.
Yeah, because you have your franchise quarterback, and you can say, all right, Drew Lock had a good year. We don't need to worry about that. Thank fucking God. Let's form a team around him. And so,
and on top of adding those receivers and those weapons there, not only do you have Philip Lindsay in the backfield, they also added Melvin Gordon,
which is a nice change of pace for Philip Lindsay now. I love that pickup. That's
going to be a great 1-2 punch in the backfield.
Oh, yeah. I love this Broncos draft, not because the players are amazing, but because I like the philosophy and that they said, you know what? We need to make sure Drew Lock succeeds. We need to make sure we don't leave him in the dust.
Elway finally said, okay, I might have my guy. I'm going to give him all the pieces he needs to for sure find out if he is the guy. You
got your sure-handed, I think, possession receiver in Cortland Sutton, right? Maybe
I would say he's more of the deep threat number one guy, then Judy is the shorter.
I was going to say
quick route.
I was going to say KJ Hamler's your speed guy because that's what he did at Penn State. He was your speed guy. So I was going to say Cortland Sutton's your sure-handed guy because he catches the ball very well. I'm not saying like he's the short guy. I'm saying he's the one that you can throw it to. Your number one. Your X receiver. Cortland Sutton's your X receiver, right? Whether it's going long, going short, in the middle of the field, doesn't matter. He's the guy who can do it all. Then you got your specialty in KJ Hamler, and then you got your sure-handed shortness for like 3rd and 3 in Jerry Jeudy, right? On top of that, you still have Noah Fant, who's a big body target, great for the red zone. Overall, and then they picked a center from LSU. They picked up, I remember, another pass rusher. They picked up another tight end. Like, they literally said, we need to make sure that Drew Lock succeeds. And if he doesn't succeed this year, then we know we got to find another quarterback. Because we gave him all this talent and it didn't work. I love the philosophy behind this. I'm not saying Denver is going to be a 10 or 11 win team. What I'm saying, though, is I like Drew Lock's tape. I love his potential going into this year. And I love that Denver agrees and said, we're going to find out. Because, like I said, I'm telling you, Pardue, go back and watch the tape. It's not amazing. It's not Kyler Murray.
Yeah, but I'll have to go back and look at it. But, I mean, I'm just not ready to crown him a good quarterback.
It's really encouraging, is what I would say. That's why I said I'm optimistic about Drew Lock. I'm not ready to say Drew Lock is Denver's quarterback. But I think he certainly deserves the tryout. And I like that Elway didn't just say, oh, yeah, we're going to try you out, but you got to do it without help. No, they said, we're going to give you the help. And the best part about this, too, is if you don't have Drew Lock, Jerry Jeudy is still a solid wide receiver to keep around anyway, no matter who the quarterback is, right? Having a center, Lloyd Cushenberry, that's a great pickup. No matter whether Drew Lock's your quarterback or not. I like that this draft still can move on without Drew Lock, even if he doesn't succeed. So that's why I wanted to talk about Denver, because people are talking about the Raiders and the Chargers, and quite honestly, this was a team who went 7-9. 4 of those 7 wins were Drew Lock. I honestly believe Denver at minimum is going 8-8 this year, and they could sneak into the playoffs with the number 7 seed. Probably get smashed by whoever the number 2 is, but hey. I don't know. What do you think? I've been kind of taking over on this. What are your thoughts on Denver?
I think they like kind of basically what you've been saying is that they've built a really great roster in this offseason. I feel like they've had one of the best off seasons of any team in the league. I think a really underrated move.
Oh, also one other thing I want to talk about: AJ Bouye. What a fantastic trade! Dirt cheap. They got him for dirt cheap.
Now, AJ Bouye really took a step back, especially after Jalen Ramsey left.
But you had to replace Talib in some way.
I agree, and I still think that's a pretty good pickup. But when I look at the offense, I think Melvin Gordon was a really underrated pickup. Because even when he played with the Chargers last year, it took him a little bit to get in rhythm, but he played well down the stretch. Because as an Austin Eckler owner in fantasy, I was getting really pissed off when Melvin Gordon was scoring goal line touchdowns.
I think that's what it'll be. Philip Lindsay will be like the open field guy,
right.
And then Melvin Gordon will be the change of pace.
Right. And I believe Melvin Gordon will be the third down guy and a guy who's going to be catching the ball more out of the backfield, and Philip Lindsay will be the 1 and 2 down guy getting 3 or 4 yards on first and second down, et cetera, et cetera. I really like what they did with that offense. I think Jerry Jeudy was the first or second best receiver in the draft, and then in addition, you add a guy with first round talent like KJ Hamler. They had a really good draft, and like you were saying, they're in a fairly good division. You got the defending Super Bowl champions in that division. The Chargers are there, who have a great roster. They really do. The Chargers have a really good roster. I don't like Justin Herbert. I think he's garbage. He's gonna. I
also from the sound of it, it doesn't sound like Justin Herbert's going to start day one anyway.
Probably
from the sound of it.
And then you have the Raiders in that division. Ever since John Gruden's been there, I've never been big on his philosophy and how he's been building his team. It doesn't seem to have a true direction. I mean, they won a few games last year, but they started off hot
6-4
and they kind of just trailed off.
79.
Yeah. So I'm not really big on the Raiders. I love the Chargers roster, but that quarterback situation is not good. They have Tyrod Taylor I feel confident that Tyrod Taylor will have a better career than Justin Herbert. I don't like Justin Herbert at all, but I believe the Broncos are the second place team, and I could see them winning, 9 games. It depends on how it all plays out, but I like what they've done this offseason.
All right, sweet. Do you want to continue on our team rants, or do you want to go to players? Up to you.
I say we take a little break from the teams and go to players.
Go to players. All right, let's talk about Baker Mayfield then. If you ask
I'll
me,
let you go first since that was yours.
If you ask me, there's a couple things I want to say about Baker Mayfield, and it turns into the Browns organization as a whole. Okay, So imagine this: your quarterback who's drafted is the number 1 pick. You're not viewed as the most NFL ready quarterback. Josh Rosen is viewed as the most NFL ready quarterback, but you're picked number 1 anyway.
You saw how that turned out.
Okay, you what?
And you saw how that turned out.
Yeah, you saw how that turned out. Yeah. You go through your rookie year. Your head coach gets fired. You get a replacement coach who actually doesn't do too badly. Who doesn't stay as the head coach. He becomes the Jets' defensive coordinator. And if you guys who are wondering who I'm talking about Greg Williams. And the guy who went from offensive quarterbacks coach to offensive coordinator for 7 games to your head coach is Freddie Kitchens, because you wanted to appease Baker Mayfield. It was a horrible hire from the start. Horrible.
That's why you can't be letting younger quarterbacks dictate.
It's not even that
franchise is doing.
It's not even that. A lot of people bought into the fact that Kitchens, like your head coach should help your quarterback. You have to remember this was during a time when Sean McVay was getting amazing results from Jared Goff and Patrick Mahomes had his MVP. You have to remember the context of the situation. So the Browns are thinking, oh shit. Oh, and Lamar Jackson had his 6-1 season because the head coach tailored their offense to it. So you have to remember what was happening at the time, right? You saw 3 to 4 examples of these teams committing to their quarterbacks, and the Browns were like, well, fuck, we got to do that too. And he was doing pretty well for Freddie Kitchens. They didn't think about the fact that Freddie Kitchens was just a quarterbacks coach who became offensive coordinator for 7 games, who was suddenly given a head coach role. Makes no sense. It just made no sense to me in the hire, and it ended up being a horrible hire, and I knew it would be. I don't know why everyone was hyped about it. It was fucking dumb. We had an entire like half hour on that a few episodes ago, so I won't get into it too much. But what I want to talk about is like the unfortunate circumstance of Baker Mayfield and why I'm optimistic about the Browns this year. And why my early predictions are actually that the Browns will be the second team in the AFC North. I like the Kevin Stefanski hire. I'm not like the biggest fan of it, but I can still say that I like it.
Right.
I certainly think it'll benefit Baker. I love the offense around him. I love Nick Chubb. I like Jarvis Landry. I'm not a fan of Odell Beckham at this point.
Mm-hmm.
But I love the fact that the Browns said, you know what, Nick Chubb is our best part. We have Kareem Hunt. Let's take a tackle in the first round. Let's be level-headed about this. They provided protection for Baker. And if you look at the rest of the Browns 2020 draft, here, let me point out some players that the Browns draft got. Because not everyone is talking about the Browns draft. And I think it's kind of a crime that no one is right now. They got a safety, which they needed. They got another defensive tackle already behind a monstrous defensive line. So they got rotational players, right? Mm-hmm. They got another tight end in Harrison Brandt. By the way, they signed Austin Hooper. And they got a center. It's not the most eye-popping draft, but it's a draft that said, you know what? Let's focus on what we need. Mm-hmm. I love their draft. I don't understand why no one's talking about this Browns draft when this draft is arguably one of the best drafts when it comes in terms of filling need. None of these names pop off to you. You don't know any of these names. But they filled all their courses of need. And frankly, I don't know why people aren't taking that into consideration. Sure, player names may not pop off. They may not be from, championship level college teams. But man, the Browns knew what they were doing this draft. And Baker said he wanted to be more humble this season, which I have, if anyone has ever known me personally, or they've ever heard me on this show, I cannot stand him whatsoever.
And I've come from the standpoint where I've met the guy in person. I've talked to the guy in person back when I was a manager at Topgolf in Scottsdale. He seemed like a really level-headed guy. He was really nice when I talked to him. I think the person you see in the media in football, Baker, is different from the person you see out in public. And that's all right. Now, if you're going to be that guy and you're going to be cocky, you need to back it up.
You need to win, first of all.
Right.
Like, for example, Cam Newton. I backed up Cam Newton when he was unpopular through his 2015 season. A lot of people didn't like that he was backing. I was like, you know what? As long as he's winning, who gives a fuck? If he wants to dab on you, he wants to dab on you. If he wants to do the super cam, he's going to do the super cam. Stop him if you don't want him to do it, right? That was my attitude.
And then there's like a Jalen Ramsey kind of guy who literally just says to the media, oh, this player and this player.
This player's trash.
Who's been in the league for a decade is trash. I hate that. I can't stand shit like that.
But what I'm saying, though, is I backed up Cam Newton until he became a little bitch in that post-game Super Bowl. I lost all respect for Newton. I can't believe I defended him all year only for him to throw dirt in my face.
Loss.
Yeah, I can't believe he took the loss that way. And he's always been kind of a dick ever since. Baker's the same way. And I've always maintained that Baker was a winner up till this last year. And Baker's the type of guy who, his rookie season, he didn't view that as a losing season. The record said 7-8-1, but Baker Mayfield's Browns said 5-2. Baker Mayfield was a winner up till last year. And I questioned going into the season. And I remember telling you this. I'm like, I don't know how Baker's going to react to losing. If they start losing, what's going to happen? You know what happened? He criticized a reporter telling him that was the stupidest question ever, which, to be fair, the question was really stupid. But it's a standard practice, and this reporter had kind of gotten on Baker before, so I understand, like, Baker didn't like this media guy, and this media guy kind of had him in a corner. It was a recipe for disaster, the way the whole thing was set up. And obviously the reporter was trying to get something out of Baker, but Baker fell for the trap. The key is you don't need to fall for that trap. He fell for the trap. It got even worse, where instead of walking out on the media, Baker's warming up. A fan on an opposing field, in an away field, the fans are gonna yell at you. You ignore them. Instead, Baker's there
Right.
stretching his right calf and says, if I was allowed to, I'd be up there already, right? Not even looking at the
I
fan.
know, right?
And at that point, I'm like, Baker, dude, you're a dick.
You can't say that.
You can't say
do
that. No,
right.
you can't. No, you are being an asshole at this point. You are immature. You are not. You are not a leader. You
talk shit to opposing players and their staff or whatever all you want on game day, but don't threaten fans. You can't do that.
Yeah,
especially as a quarterback.
So I've always thought Baker was a dick. Last year, I kind of reveled in everything that he did poorly because I was so sick of hearing Baker's better than Lamar. Last year was the perfect season for me. Baker went way downhill. Lamar had an MVP season. It was the greatest thing in the world for me as a Baker Mayfield hater. What I'm going to tell you right now, as a Baker Mayfield hater, is I have a lot of optimism for Baker. I love the draft that they put. I like that they drafted a lineman. I like that they got a head coach who worked with Kirk Cousins and did some good work with Kirk Cousins. I think he can do some good work with Baker. And I like that Baker said Super Bowl week, I need to be humble and I need to shut my mouth. If he can act on that, I will quickly turn on how I feel about Baker.
And I agree with it. And I agree, and I have the same feelings as you do. My only thing is I don't trust the Browns. And I really like Baker.
I think the Browns are kind of a shit organization. As we said, you need a GM, you need a head coach, and a quarterback. They might have the GM. GM's pretty solid. They, in my opinion, should have the quarterback if he can fucking shut his mouth.
Mm-hmm.
And honestly, I'm not the biggest fan of the hire, but I think this is the right head coach for Baker Mayfield.
I need to see them win and win consistently.
You can't tell
I can't trust anything the Browns do until I really see them be successful and not make what seems like dysfunctional franchise decisions.
By the way, coming from a guy who actually wasn't on the hype last year, when they got Odell Beckham and whatnot, this is coming from me, the guy who didn't buy into the hype. Does it not make you drool to think about Landry, Hunt, Chubb, and Hooper all on the same field at the same time?
It really does, but they were all on the same field last year besides Hooper.
Let me talk again. Let me finish. I was about to say, with a head coach who might know what he's doing, because that's what I was about to say.
Well, that's the thing is, do we know if he knows what he's doing?
I really like Stefanski's work. It's not the most amazing thing in the world.
I can say I do too, but
I like Stefanski's work.
Steve Wilkes did great work with the Panthers defense, and he was one of the worst coaches I've ever seen.
Not everyone's designed to be a head coach, and you can make that argument for Kevin Stefanski considering this is his first time. Mm-hmm. But you know what? It's not like Stefanski's had a horrible run, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
I'm willing to give the Browns a shot, and this also has to deal with the fact that I'm so down on the Steelers offense. I mean, that's another story for another time. But oh boy, the North sucks. That's all I'm going to say. The AFC North sucks. All right. Do you want to continue with players, or do you want to talk about your favorite team in the NFL?
Well, I actually have some good takes on the Cowboys, so I say we go on to them.
Let's talk about your favorite team in the NFL then. Let's talk about the Cowboys. Are they pretenders or contenders?
So I'll do my side first. For me, and it's not just me being a Cowboy hater.
It's him being a Cowboy.
No, it's not.
Yeah, okay, go on.
They're pretenders, dude. They almost had the exact same roster this year as they did last year, and they were pretenders last year. Now, when I'm looking at this franchise and what they're doing right now, to me it just doesn't make sense. You pay an ass load of money to Ezekiel Elliott, a running back. Everybody knows who's listened to this podcast consistently. I had David Johnson on my team, and it was one of the biggest mistakes this franchise has made in quite a long time by paying him. Also, history shows that running backs and players with 300-plus touches in one single season multiple times in a row, they die off, and their careers trail off fairly quickly. Ezekiel Elliott's only going to be really good and have great production for maybe 1 or 2 more years. And a big part of that is the great offensive line he's been running behind. Don't get me wrong, Ezekiel Elliott is a really great running back, but no player's been able to do that. No player's been able to take that many hits and that much of a beating and take that many carries and touches and consistently be good for a long time. And you paid him all this money, and then you paid Amari Cooper a ton of money. And what just I don't understand is you pay 2 skill position players all this money, willy-nilly. You just throw all that money out, yet you aren't willing to pay your franchise guy.
I mean, if he was asking for $40 million a year, I wouldn't be paying it either. Just saying.
You're not wrong, and I agree with you. I'm 100% there because I'm not a big fan of Dak. But if he is your guy, if he is your franchise quarterback, and you're willing to throw all this money at a pretty good receiver and a running back, I don't care if that running back has been one of the most consistent running backs in the league in the last 3, 4, 5 years. Doesn't matter. You don't pay running backs anymore. They could go find another running back and put him behind that line, and he'll be just as productive and effective. I can say that confidently.
Yeah, Tony Pollard already looks pretty good.
Exactly. Now, you mean to tell me you're willing to pay all that money to 2 skill position players, one of which is the least valuable position in the National Football League, that being a running back. But you're not willing to overpay for your franchise quarterback. That is the one position you should be overpaying for. Patrick Mahomes is about to reset the market for all National Football League players and is going to be the highest paid football player of all time when he gets his new contract. For me, personally, I think he's going to be overpaid because he's probably going to be making 40, 45, potentially $50 million a year, depending what the cap space looks like for these teams when he gets that new contract. I think it's going to be an overpayment. But it makes sense because he's the best player and best quarterback at the most valuable and difficult position in sports. But it just doesn't make sense to not pay Dak. And then to go out and get a guy like Andy Dalton, and yes, I get it, he's the backup, but I'm not saying Andy Dalton's going to steal the job from Dak Prescott. But you don't go out and pay Andy Dalton $7 million, $3 million guaranteed and not pay your franchise guy. If they were really committed to Dak for the next 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 years, the deal would have been done months and months and months ago. The fact of the matter is the deal's not done, and they've already signed long-term their franchise cornerstones.
So here's what
it just doesn't make sense.
So here's what I'm going to tell you about the Cowboys, okay? There's a lot of up and downs that I have with the Cowboys. For example, I really, really hate Travis Frederick leaving. I hate it. I don't hate him for leaving. I just hate the whole. And there's a stat line about Travis Frederick being in games and not being in games, and it's a very scary stat for the Cowboys. And it turns out he was actually a very, very big reason Elliott did so well. Because Elliott's numbers are way down when Travis Frederick's not in the game. And Dak Prescott's numbers are way down when Elliott's not doing well. So there's a lot of correlation and causation here. So I worried about that. I really like the work they did on the defense. Letting go to Byron Jones, whatever. He got overpaid by the Dolphins, so I can see why you didn't want to pay that kind of money.
The Dolphins also had the money to overpay him.
Yeah, you ended up getting Ha Clinton Dix for your safety position, which I am a fan of, actually, and he's also worked under Mike McCarthy, so that's nice. My big thing over here, which actually really makes me like the Cowboys, not love like I did last year. Fuck. Damn. I'm not falling for that shit again. But what I like is that this coaching staff actually has a lot of head coaching experience. Besides Mike McCarthy, Joe Philbin's on this team. Jim Tonsila is on this team. God, what's his name? I forget his name. I can't even. I'm trying to look it up right now, and I can't remember. They have four former head coaches on this team. One playing as the head coach, which is Mike McCarthy. So I like the coaching experience on this team. It's so drastic from Jason Garrett's resume. He only kept 3 people from Jason Garrett's resume, Kellen Moore being one of them. I think he kept the offensive coordinator simply because I think he wanted Dak Prescott to have a familiar face. Which makes sense, right? You know, Kellen Moore's been working with Dak Prescott, so you want him to keep working with Dak Prescott. You want to give Dak Prescott some sort of comfort. I also really, really like that Mike Nolan is now their defensive coordinator, who I think can make an improvement upon... Oh, yeah, Mike Nolan's the other one. He used to be the head coach for the 49ers. I'm dumb. If you don't know who Mike Nolan is, he used to be the defensive coordinator for the Falcons when the Falcons had a pretty good defense from 2012 to 2014. So I like this hire. A big reason I'm not necessarily sold on the Cowboys, but optimistic for them, isn't necessarily their roster, but I like the philosophy changes in coaching, and I look at this, I'm like, yeah, this should change. This should turn around the problems that the Cowboys had before, because their coaching resume wasn't that great, in my opinion. Jason Garrett had finally outwore his welcome, and if you want to win the NFC East, I think you need to outcoach Doug Peterson. It's not even beat Carson Wentz, it's outcoach Doug Peterson. And that's not a slight towards Wentz. I think that's just a respect that I have for Doug Peterson. And now you got Ron Rivera in there, and who the hell knows who Joe Judge is? No one knows. Not a single analyst has a real not a single analyst has a real take on Joe Judge. Nobody knows. Who knows? Joe Judge could be the next freaking great head coach for all we know. But I think in this division, coaching matters, and I really like what they got there. So that's why I'm optimistic about the Cowboys. If you want me to answer the question of the contenders or pretenders, I'm going to tell you the same thing I told you a week ago. I have no idea. I think this division's between the Eagles and the Cowboys. I don't consider the Redskins in play right now. Maybe the Giants could if Daniel Jones doesn't fumble the ball so much. When you watch tape on Jones, a lot of his problems is just ball security. So if he can fix that, hey, maybe the Giants are players, but I honestly doubt it. I think they have more issues than just Daniel Jones, and holy fuck, their offensive coordinator is Jason Garrett. Good lord.
And their offensive line is just
a mess.
Not good.
So yeah. I take the divisions between the Eagles and the Cowboys, and I can't tell you whether they're contenders or pretenders. I can be optimistic, but I can't tell you, honestly. I think it really comes down to how is in-game coaching, and can Dak Prescott give us another 4,900-yard, 30 TD, 11 interception year? Because that's really nice, actually, to be able to have your quarterback throw 30 touchdowns and only 11 interceptions. The one thing I will give Dak Prescott for is he doesn't throw interceptions. I will give him credit for that. He does not throw interceptions. He threw 6 his first year, 13 his second year, which was the most, 8 his third year, and 11 his last year. That's not a lot per year. If you're averaging 10 interceptions per year, you're golden. So, yeah, that's my take on the Cowboys. I don't know. I really don't know. Right. And I think the NFC East is going to be a division where I am going to be very undecided going up to the first Thursday of football when it's the Chiefs versus the Texans. Yeah, I'm still betting on that.
When I'm looking at the NFC East, it's still between the Cowboys and Eagles, and it's probably going to be a fight between them until the end. Like
last year, they go down to week 16 or 17.
Right, and personally, I just see it being the Eagles. I think overall, they're a better coach team. You've heard me say before, I'm not a big fan of Mike McCarthy. I also think, especially when you have older veteran coaches who come to new teams, it takes a little bit for them to get it off the ground. So I can see the Cowboys coming really slow out of the gate, then finally getting hot down the stretch, and it not being enough to win the division. Maybe enough to make the playoffs, considering it is an expanded playoff. But there's going to be a lot of teams in this NFC that are going to be fighting for those, like, last 2 wild card spots. And a 9-7 team is probably going to get it, but how many 9-7 teams are there going to be?
Yeah.
So that it's just a big question mark. I don't know. Like I wouldn't necessarily say the Cowboys are pretenders, but I can't call them contenders because they prove me right every year. I say they aren't, and I did last year.
Yeah, I remember.
So.
I remember. So we have 2 things left on our board here, and we are 16 minutes away from the 2-hour approach. So I would say we're on board for our usual timeline. I will tell you one thing. We were supposed to talk about the state of New York this episode. I think that'll take a long time. So we can say that for a number of episodes. We actually got a lot of thoughts on the Bills, Jets, and Giants. We're gonna throw some love to the lower tier teams, and not calling Bills lower tier teams. I mean the Jets and the Giants. But there's a lot going on there that you can talk about. So let's hit these last 2. Bengals as an organization. I feel bad for Joe Burrow. He's going
now. Yeah, go ahead.
He's going to an organization that has very stubborn owners.
Mm-hmm.
And when your best quarterback in your history, maybe not, maybe it's Andy Dalton, maybe it's I don't know, it's Carson Palmer, Andy Dalton, or Boomer Esiason. There's Boomer Esiason. He's probably he's the best quarterback of the year. Yeah, it's Boomer Esiason. My bad. But okay, your second best is Andy Dalton or Carson Palmer. When Carson Palmer tells you, hey, they don't have a winning culture there, they don't really act like they have a winning culture, they don't really want it.
Now, wait a minute, because Carson Palmer was on the Arizona sports station not too long ago, and he's actually going to be on it tomorrow as well, because they're doing like a Legends Week. They're bringing back a bunch of Arizona sports players to talk about it. And they'll probably ask him about it again tomorrow, so it might be something I talk to you tomorrow about. But that quote was taken out of context because he's already retracted it before. So
well, it's not only it's not only him.
I agree with it to a point.
It's not only him that has said it though.
Mm-hmm.
Which is, Ocho Cinco you should take with a grain of salt, in my opinion. Right. But he has said similar things too. And I would honestly believe it, because to me it's kind of weird that the Bengals went the past, 5 straight years. They didn't win a playoff game. Now, part of you can blame that on Andy Dalton and Marvin Lewis, for not rising up to the moment. Because both Marvin Lewis and Andy Dalton have had a problem of rising up to the moment at times. Like, Andy Dalton was solid, has had a solid career, but whenever he was under prime time, he always just fluttered for whatever reason.
Mm-hmm.
And
to be fair, though, they should have beaten
the Steelers. I know. I 100%
Montez Perfect.
Montez Perfect, Adam Jones, and
yeah.
Oh, hey, the day Antonio Brown was forever doomed.
Oh boy.
I want to talk about them. I want to talk about them as an organization, though. I feel bad for Joe Burrow because he's expected to be the savior, and when I look at this roster, I'm like, dude, you have a great offense. You got Mixon. I mean, maybe AJ Green can still do it, right? You have it's John Ross. It's John Ross.
John Ross.
Yeah.
He's still on the roster, but they just declined his 5th-year option because they're not high on him.
Yeah,
they still have Tyler Boyd, who's another really good receiver.
You have weapons, but where's the defense? Where's the line?
Yeah.
There isn't a line to protect him. I don't think there's a defense to protect leads. I think you're constantly going to have to be scoring. Mm-hmm. And, yeah, Joe Burrow was amazing in college, but welcome to the Pittsburgh defense and the Baltimore defense and the Cleveland defense. Like, dude, you are in the worst division to be as a rookie quarterback. You were playing 6 games of nasty defenses. That's not fun.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't understand how the Bengals just sat there and decided to say, "Hey, let's take Joe Burrow." And I'm kind of with you. Like, I'm not surprised Andy Dalton was cut. I thought he was cut during free agency because I thought they were going to give him a. I'm an idiot. I sat here the last 3 weeks wondering why the fuck hasn't Andy Dalton been signed by the Patriots yet, only to realize 2 days ago that he had not been cut yet.
Now,
but
real.
Go ahead.
So just real quick, as an LSU fan, obviously I love Joe Burrow, but when I look at it and I analyze it, he couldn't have been taken to a worse situation. I think it's kind of cool that he's going back to his hometown and he's going to play for the team that he grew up watching, but I'm not sure he wants to be there.
I'm not sure he wants to be there either.
And he just doesn't seem super excited about being a Bengal.
To be fair, I don't think anyone would be.
Yeah, but it doesn't seem like it's a great fit. And when the moment I saw that the Bengals released Andy Dalton, I'm starting to get the idea that Joe Burrow might not ever be successful in this league because I don't know if this team could properly, build around him and give him a chance. He might be he's better than Josh Rosen, don't get me wrong. Joe Burrow is the greatest college quarterback of all time, what he did last year. But you're putting him into a terrible situation. There's no rookie mini camps. There's no stuff for him. He's not going to hit the field with his team until late July, and then he's going to get his first preseason action a couple weeks later, and then you're throwing him into the fire in his first regular season action just a few weeks later.
So here's my other take on this, because I'm agreeing with everything in it, and I want to put this last thing, and I'll let you take over for the rest of it. I liked the Zach Taylor hire, but now that he has his quarterback, can he coach? I think that's the big question. Can he coach? He went 1-15 with a bad roster. Feel bad for him. Mm-hmm. But can he coach?
Right. And my thing is I really wanted them to hang on to Andy Dalton for this last year because I didn't want Joe Burrow to start it right away. And yes, he's the number one overall pick. Everybody's expecting him to start it right away. But with that roster, with not being able to hit the field with this team for the first time until late July, it's a formula to fail.
That's exactly what I was thinking in my head and why I feel bad for him. I think the Bengals is an organization, and this is no offense to Zach Taylor or anything like that, because he got put into a shitty situation too. Mm-hmm. But I don't think they as an organization, as a front office, have it together. I don't think the head coaching probably isn't going to suffice, and that's not anything against Zach Taylor. It's just Zach Taylor's in a shitty situation. Mm-hmm. And I just don't see the support being there, organization-wise, for Joe Burrow to succeed. I think he's got the weapons. Right. I 100% think he's got the weapons. But he doesn't have the line to protect him, and he certainly doesn't have a defense to protect those leads.
And just like you've been saying, organizationally, it's about long term as well. Because AJ Green's not going to be around forever. He's probably not going to be on that team after next year. Joe Mixon, running backs are a revolving door in the NFL. Again, he has no line. Tyler Boyd's all right. It's just
you're being.
It reminds me too much of the Josh Rosen situation with Arizona. He had decent offensive pieces around him, David Johnson, Larry Fitzgerald, Christian Kirk, but you can't do anything if you don't have a line, and being a rookie, it's not easy. He's not just going to come in and be super successful on a team like that.
My biggest thing too is you're being asked to outscore the plethora of weapons that the Browns has. You're being asked to outscore Lamar Jackson's offense, and you're being asked to outscore a future Hall of Fame quarterback. Yikes, rough.
Yeah, I love Joe Burrow, and I really hope he has a really successful career because I just love the guy he is, and I think he's a great quarterback. But
you're throwing against Minka Fitzpatrick. You're throwing against Marlon Humphrey. You're throwing against Denzel Ward. I could go on.
Being great in college can only take you so far when you're coming into a division like that, facing defenses like that, and when you're on such a poor team. So as of right now, I love Joe Burrow. I'm an LSU fan, but it's not looking pretty for him.
I agree. So let's segue this into the last part, which has to do with Newton, Dalton, Foles, and the entire Bears conundrum. So I don't know why the hell apparently
Newton's still a free agent or still on the market?
it's
Because he's not a free agent.
well, I know why Newton's a free agent. I know why he is. It's because of the injury thing, and people need to get a physical test on him. So I know why.
Well, while that's correct, I mean, David Johnson and DeAndre Hopkins still got their physicals taken care of. Teams could find a way to get the physicals done. But even if that's the case, you mean to tell me that Andy Dalton and Nick Foles are more talented than Cam Newton and give you a better chance to win than Cam Newton? Yes.
I actually might take Andy Dalton over Newton, but here's what I'm going to say. Dalton was released. Newton was released. Mm-hmm. And you decided...
Was Newton released, or is he... I'm pretty sure he's still on the Panthers roster.
No, he was released.
Okay, go ahead. Continue.
Yep, March 24th. Released. Looked it up. Just now. So...
yep, you're right.
Here's my problem. The Bears... Essentially, it's kind of speculation, but you more or less know Joe Burrow's going to be taken, right? Mm-hmm. And in essence, Andy Dalton's going to be released. The Panthers tried to look for a trade, but could not end up releasing him. This Nick Foles trade, by the way, took place on March 18th, 6 days before Newton was released. You're telling me...
Yeah, I feel like it was so rushed, and it was so unnecessary for them to do that trade.
No, you're telling me you send a fourth-round pick, which is a decent pick. It's not the highest of things, but it's a decent pick. It's in the compensatory pick. If you can get a round pick and a compensatory pick, usually I feel like that's a worthy pick, fourth-round pick. And we've seen fourth-rounders do some stuff. Dak Prescott's one of them right now. You're telling me you're going to give a fourth-round pick away for Nick Foles, only to say it's a QB competition. By the way, it's not. I'm 100% Nick Foles is starting week 1. I'm pretty sure he is. Because he also has connections with Matt Nagy, by the way, when Matt Nagy was with the Chiefs and Foles was with the Chiefs.
Correct.
You're telling me you view Foles as a better option than Dalton or Newton? And you traded a fourth-round pick when you could have traded... Here's what bothers me. Newton was going to be released, right? Mm-hmm. I don't know if teams knew that or not, but the matter of the fact is that he was, and the owner said, get healthy, and we'll talk about long-term. When the owner says get healthy, we'll talk about long-term, in response to Newton saying he wanted to be in Carolina the rest of his career, that's very telling to me that the team's already over him. And that should tell the rest of the NFL the team's over him. You're telling me you couldn't trade the Panthers for a fifth-round pick or something like that for Newton? You're telling me that a fourth round for Foles is better than a fifth round for Newton? It is insane to me. And you could,
if you're going to give up draft capital for a quarterback that...
Why was it Foles? Over Dalton or Newton? Right. Why was it Foles? Right. I don't get it. Can you explain that to me?
Either way, neither of those quarterbacks are their long-term answer. Nick Foles is not the long-term answer. Cam Newton wasn't going to be the long-term answer.
At least Newton or Dalton could win some games.
Who would give you the best chance? Who has had more long-term success in the league out of those three?
Dalton and Newton.
Exactly. Now, who fits that offense better? Probably Dalton. But the highest upside?
Newton.
It's probably Newton. Because if Newton comes back and he's healthy, and maybe not 2015 Newton, but healthy and, able to actually stand and run and walk around on a football field, because that he wasn't able to when in his brief gameplay this last year. Now, if he's healthy and he comes into that roster, because the Bears have a decent offense, they got a great receiver in Allen Robinson, a very highly underrated receiver in Allen Robinson. It just doesn't make sense to me. Cam Newton would have been my pick out of all those, and
I would have picked Andy Dalton, but I don't mind picking Newton either. My problem is, and I'm not a Foles hater, but I remember when a bunch of people were like pick Wentz or Foles, and I said Wentz. It's not even a question. They're like, but Foles won a Super Bowl. I'm like, yeah, and Foles has also sucked the rest of his career outside of Philadelphia. Outside of a 10-6 season with Chip Kelly, remember that? Outside of a 10-6 season with Chip Kelly, where he threw 27 touchdowns to 3 interceptions, and he threw 21 touchdowns before throwing an interception. Outside of that, and his Super Bowl run, where he was hot for 5 games, which, by the way, he sucked for 3 of those games leading to the playoffs. Everyone thought the Eagles were doomed. It wasn't even 5 games, it was 3. He played well for 3 games. Division, championship, and Super Bowl. Week 15, 16, 17, he sucked. Literally everyone had written off the Eagles. Everyone was like, yeah, the Falcons are beating the Eagles, which, by the way, they almost did. Thank you, Julio Jones, for dropping a touchdown catch. Nick Foles sucked going into that. He had 3 magical games. And credit to him for throwing for 400-something yards and 5 touchdowns against Tom Brady. Congratulations to him for that. No taking away from that. But you're going to tell me 3 games and a Super Bowl MVP is going to convince you for long-term success when his only other successful time was 1 season with a Chip Kelly offense that bamboozled everyone for a year and then everyone figured it out? No.
And now he can't. And now he can't even win like 5 games.
He couldn't win games with the Chiefs. He couldn't win games with the Jaguars. Why the fuck do you think he's going to win Bears with the games? And this is not a Nick Foles hate train. It's just reality. I just don't get it.
I feel like Nick Foles' best chance for long-term NFL success was staying with the Eagles, and he wouldn't be elite by any means, but he would have helped that team continue to win. Because I don't know if you remember now, I was on board with them keeping Nick Foles and trading Carson Wentz because they could get a fucking boatload for Carson Wentz at the time.
Yeah.
He was the MVP of the league.
Yeah, the draft
I was like, I feel like the Eagles can win with Nick Foles, and you don't need a super amazing, awesome, super talented, incredible, elite quarterback to win in the National Football League.
Yeah, they showed it literally the previous year.
You could have a Joe Flacco, because that's what Nick Foles was on that team.
You are actually correct. Because Joe Flacco was always like number 13, number 14 on everybody's quarterback lists, and then he got hot for 1 postseason, right? I mean, he actually had the nickname January Joe, so he was usually hot in the playoffs, but that's when Joe Flacco actually played up to his contract, was the playoffs. He never played up to his contract other than the playoffs. I don't get it. I never will get it as a fan, but he always played well in the playoffs. And notably, Nick Foles kind of had the same thing. He played really well in the postseason.
And now, so I was on board with them doing that, and then just trading Carson Wentz for someone's entire fucking draft, and then some. But that's besides the point. When it comes down to those 3, the Bears not taking Newton or Dalton just doesn't make sense. And to give up a decent 4th-round pick for it, it just shows the dysfunctionality that is the Bears front office. They have like 11 tight ends on their roster, dude.
Yep,
what
they
is
do.
That?
So here's
insane.
Here's my final hot take on this, and going with the Bears. I think they're destined to be 4th in the division. I think the Lions are going to do better, and I think Matt Nagy is destined to be fired. Not because Matt Nagy is terrible, but because it's the Bears, right? You have a standard to live up to.
I think Matt Nagy's a good coach. I think that front office is just god awful.
Yeah, but you have a standard to live up to, though, right? You're the Bears. You are the monsters of the Midway. You have a standard to live up to, and your most recent NFC Championship was Jay fucking Cutler? Okay. Oh, by the way, your most recent Super Bowl starting quarterback was Rex Grossman?
Yeah. They've never had a good quarterback. They've never had a great quarterback.
Hey, don't disrespect Jay Cutler.
And, like, you could say Jim McMahon, but they weren't great back then because of Jim McMahon. They were great because of Walter Payton and that offensive line and that fucking defense. So, I've never liked the Bears organizationally. I've never liked what they've done. I'm not a big fan of their roster. Yeah, that defense is really good. They got Khalil Mack and they got a good secondary. But defense wins championships, but offense provides hope and like light for a football team, and they just don't have it. So that's my take.
No, Jim Harbaugh was their starting quarterback. He wasn't bad.
He's not great. My point is, you mean to tell me that the Bears, one of the very first NFL franchises, you can't name one great quarterback for them?
I'm looking through their entire history right now from 1929 to now, dude. Arguably the best ones were Jim McMahon, Jay Cutler, or Jim Harbaugh. Not even joking.
Exactly. They're all bad.
You know what? They never kept him around, but I liked Kyle Orton.
No.
You say no, but he had some...
I mean, that's just a typical Bears quarterback. That's just a Trubisky. That's just a Nick Foles. That's just another Jay Cutler.
I mean, I think Orton's better than... Maybe not better than Jay Cutler, but... You know what I will say about Jay Cutler is he was decent enough to where you could have won a Super Bowl with him if you put a roster around him. But
he also just didn't give.
Did you say agree or disagree?
I said agree.
I mean, yeah, they made it to the AFC Championship.
This dude had a cannon.
Yeah, it's just he made a few reckless throws every now and then.
Mm-hmm.
So, I think that's going to end it from us. We will touch New York teams next time around. We got some really fun ideas for you guys. We hit our 2-hour mark. We're at 2 hours and 2 minutes. So we are going to let you go. I need to start dinner. So that's going to be a thing for me.
Yeah, same. I'm having spaghetti, and I'm starving. I need to take a shower because I'm still really dirty from work. So yeah,
it was really nice getting back onto the show, though. I'm so happy this is. I was so excited about this talk, and I'm really happy this is happening. We covered a lot. If we didn't talk about your team, we will be talking about them, I promise. We actually have a lot of things to cover, all sorts of teams. Might even with the New York teams, maybe we'll make that a downer team episode or something like that. Talk about the Jaguars and how they're tanking.
Oh, yeah.
Holy moly! So
they are.
They 100% are. They've traded away everyone. Dude, they're doing what the Dolphins did last. It just must be a Florida thing.
They're trading away everyone, though, but they're not even trading for good draft capital.
Yeah, they're kind of selling it at market price, at a decent discount price or anything. Because AJ Bouye for a 4th-round pick is not a...
What? And Calais Campbell's older. A
fifth
fifth?
round
Was
pick.
it a 6th? Yeah.
It was a 5th round
You could have
pick.
at least gotten a 3rd.
Oh, dude, when I saw we traded for Calais Campbell with a 5th round pick, I was like, what?
Dude,
Rob.
I'd give up a 3rd for a Calais Campbell. I'd maybe stretch for a 2nd.
That's a bit of a stretch.
It's a bit of a stretch, but I mean, you're getting a damn good player.
Oh, I know. I'm so hyped, dude. I'm so excited. So, and you would know. You were a Cardinals fan when you used to be on the Cardinals. So, that wraps it up for us. So, from Mr. Andrew Pardue over here, you can follow him at Ondo Sports EZ. That's it, right?
Yeah.
Or is it Ondo Sports EZ 95?
97. Yeah.
Ondo Sports, yeah, that's right. You're younger than me. Ondo Sports EZ 97, and you can follow the show at Head Couch Analysts. That's HC Analysts. So, from me, Mr. Sanchez over here, and Mr. Pardue, we wish you guys a good night.